Good afternoon and welcome to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement meeting and conference. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise while we have the presentation of colors, the pledges, and our invocation.
Please join me in the pledge to the U.S. flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now to the flag for the state of Texas.
I pledge allegiance.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Gracious and loving Father, we thank you for the many gifts, many blessings that you bestow upon us, and we glorify you through our works. We thank you for making this training conference a possibility and the opportunity to host it in our region of Deep South Texas. We thank you for the members of TCOLE, the local agencies that have assisted, and all those who had a hand and have a hand in seeing it through. You told us through your word, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in your various forms. We ask that you open our hearts and our minds so that we benefit from this training. Very specially, we place in your hands our brothers and sisters and all first responders who have answered the call and made the ultimate sacrifice in service and protection of their communities. And we ask that you bring their families peace. We pray that all who have traveled to be here have a safe return home. And we ask that we may continue to praise you through our service to our respective departments, officers in our regions, for we do all through you who strengthen us. We ask all of this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
seated.
What an incredible way to open this meeting. I'd like to introduce Sergeant Gaston Bailly, Officer Daniel Garcia, Officer Josue Perez, Officer Jose Garcia, Officer Carlos Salinas from the McAllen Police Department. Would you please give them a round of applause? We also had some special guests with DPS Pipe and Drum Corps, Sergeant Terry Barnhill, Trooper Shirley McNally, Trooper Christopher Taylor, Trooper Joel Hanks, and Trooper Clint Sherman. And again, a round of applause for them. We were also blessed to have with us today Chaplain Sergeant David DeLeon from the Brownsville Police Department. Thank you so much, sir, for being here today and for providing the invocation for all of us. So a round of applause for him too, please. I'm going to ask Melissa Moore to do a roll call of the members, but before she does that, I want to introduce our new commissioner. We have Commissioner Sergio Saenz, that Governor Abbott appointed to the commission on October 2nd. He is from Mission, so many of you may know him. He is the president of Rush Salt and CEO. He is the director of the Hidalgo County Regional Mobility Authority and a member of the Texas Advanced Air Mobility Advisory Committee and the Mid-Valley Airport Master Planning Advisory Committee. He's a former volunteer pilot for Angel Flight, South Central Texas. He received his Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and Police Administration and a Master of Business Administration from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So would like to welcome you, Commissioner, to the team. We are so grateful to have you and to have you here and able to join us today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. And where's Melissa?
Commissioner Kim Lamo.
Here.
Commissioner Jason Hester.
Here.
Commissioner Justin West. Here. Commissioner Patricia Burris.
Present.
Commissioner Jana Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Griffiths. Present. Commissioner Justin Berry.
Here.
Commissioner Connor Harvey.
Here.
Commissioner Sergio Saenz.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. We are so excited and grateful to be here in McAllen and here in Rio Grande Valley. And I want to thank, there's so many people to thank. In just a moment, I'm going to recognize some of the special guests, but I know that for us to do a meeting, not in Austin, takes a lot of work by so many different people. So I want to thank everyone that made this meeting possible. And not only are we doing a meeting, but we're doing the conference. And this is a conference. If you don't realize that this conference, as soon as we get through this week, then within the next week or two, we will be planning for the 2025 conference. So this is a year-long adventure that takes many of our staff, TCOLE staff, months and months to work with the local PDs and local law enforcement agencies, the hotels, the venue, the different vendors that we have come in. But I want to recognize the staff because I know that you all have been working so hard on this for the better part of a year, but we also want to recognize that as crunch time, and it gets closer and we go into crunch time, that you guys are putting in so many extra hours and so much work and so much effort to make sure that all of us can be here this week and can enjoy the conference. So would you help me give the TCOLE staff a round of applause for their work? And from what I have seen, y'all have just done an amazing job and completely have outdone yourselves once again this year. Well, we have many, many, many important guests here with us today, and I think it speaks volumes that we have so many heads of law enforcement agencies and different government officials that have taken the time to be here with us today. We've made it a point to try to visit different areas of the state. So we were so excited to be able to come here and not only have our meeting, but also hold the conference here in the Valley. So let me go ahead and introduce, and if you don't mind standing so that we'll give you a round of applause at the end because I have many, many people here to introduce. We have Sheriff Eddie Guerrero from Hidalgo County, Chief Jaime Ayala from Edinburgh, Chief Rolando Garcia from the FAR San Juan and Alamo ISD, Chief Juan Gonzalez from FAR, Chief Roel Murmia from Pernitas, Chief Mark Perez from Alton, Chief Ricardo Perez from Edinburgh, Chief Victor Rodriguez McAllen, Chief Saul Solis from Alamo, Chief Frank Sanchez from Mercedes, Mayor Oscar Montoya, who is the mayor of Mercedes, Chief Romaldo Rodriguez, Hidalgo PD, Chief Leonardo Cifuentes from San Juan, Chief Michael Villa from Palmhurst, and Chief Jose Trevino from Palmview. My goodness, let's give these two a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to support the TCOLE conference as well as the meeting. I know that you and your staff have all contributed a great deal to making these events possible, and the hospitality. My goodness, I mean, from all of you that are here. Have you not just experienced incredible hospitality everywhere that you've gone the last day or so? So thank you so much. Your communities have been just incredible. So at this time, I am actually going to ask my colleague and Assistant Presiding Officer Jason Hester if he would manage the meeting today. Sir?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to echo those same remarks. I know those of you that got here and saw the QR code were a little disappointed it was just the meeting agenda and not your training credit. But we're glad for you to be here. Thank you so much for, I know you're required to be here a lot, but thank you so much for showing up for this day, and we hope you find this very insightful and how things go for the commission meeting. I would encourage you at the end of the conference, the staff always sends out the surveys, that's how we work on things for next year, that you please take the time and be honest in your assessment. You are all training coordinators in the room. You know you don't get a large response rate when you ask this at your own agency, or people just circle all fives and hand you your paperwork back. But we do ask for some good constructive feedback for the conference so that we continue to make things better. I would like to move on to agenda item number 4 for the approval of the minutes of the August 7th, 2024 Commissioner Workshop and the August 8th, 2024 Commission meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
I have comments.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner West, a second by Commissioner Berry, and discussion, Commissioner Burris.
So looking at the initial minutes, that's from the Commissioner Workshop minutes of August 7th, 2024. If you go down to the second page on agenda item number 4, to refresh everyone's recollection, it states, Commissioner Patricia Burris praised the great work completed by TCOLE staff and budgeting subcommittee, but she was disappointed that the Law Enforcement Research Consortium was not listed as an exceptional item, since it was discussed and presented in February of this year. Commissioner Burris stated, there is great support from partners and advocates. This research would make a big change, and Texas would be the first in the nation to implement a program like this one. The item concludes by saying, Commissioner Burris made a motion to pass the legislative appropriations requests and exceptional items list with adding the Research Consortium as item 5A on the exceptional items list. Commissioner Janet Atkins seconded the motion, and the motion passed unanimously. This item does not accurately reflect what occurred on that date, and I believe it's important that our minutes, again, accurately reflect what happened on that date. My recollection, and we can go back and look at the minutes, is that there was an initial vote. On that initial vote, Presiding Officer Lameau, Assistant Presiding Officer Hester, and Secretary West voted against adding the Research Consortium as an exceptional item. Commissioner Atkins, Commissioner Berry, and myself voted for. Based on the number of commissioners we had at the meeting, that left a 3-3 vote. We then had further discussion, and there was a second vote. There should, in my opinion, be not only that the 2 votes were held, how those votes went, but also that Commissioner Berry did add some really relevant input to this item. And I believe the break was prior to the vote on this item, but I may be wrong on that. But that is my recollection. So we can, I've got a second one after this, but as pertains to this item, we can sit here and try to figure out language to do that, or I suppose we could table it till the next meeting to accurately reflect that, but.
Is there any other discussion by the commissioners or comments?
Well, I believe the minutes are reflective of the final vote, but Commissioner Burris is correct. There was a break, and then there were subsequent vote. There's a vote that was initially, as she described, and then we had further discussion. Commissioner Berry brought up some of our charging documents in the legislative code that drove us to the final vote. I'm not certain that it requires to have both in there. That'd be something that we'd have to ask legal if we need to record both or not.
I think it would be important, since certainly it's been brought up, to reflect the entire record. First, to ensure, as Commissioner Burris said, take a look at the record to ensure that it accurately reflects both votes. Since there were 2 votes taken, I think the minutes can be, a motion can be presented to accept the minutes with the exception of this passage, and then we can go back and review the record to ensure that accurately reflects the entire sequence, so we have the proper context.
And Commissioner Burris, you have more comments.
Yeah, the second correction to be made, this is on the date of the actual commissioner meeting, and this is in agenda item number 9. And this is at the bottom of page 7, just before the for information only. Here, this item reads, Assistant General Counsel Aaron Heath presented the proposal for decision to the commission. Assistant Presiding Officer Jason Hester made a motion to not approve the proposal for decision and recommend a written reprimand. for Peace Officer Craig W. Spencer, Everman Police Department. Commissioner Justin Berry seconded the motion, and the motion passed. Here again, I believe it's important that the minutes accurately reflect what occurred, and while the motion did pass, there were nay votes by Commissioner Atkins and myself related to the approval of the PFD.
And once again, I can confirm in the notes that we had an initial motion presented that died for lack of second prior to the final vote.
All right, with those changes brought up by Commissioner Burris, we're going to make sure that the record is accurately reflected. We will table agenda item number 4 to ensure that gets taken care of at this time. If we can correct the record before the end of this meeting on a break or something, we can revisit that then, or we will revisit it at the next commission meeting agenda. I'll now move on to item number 5, to receive reports and take action. There are no presiding officers' reports, so I will move to the executive director's report and recognize Director Stevens.
Good morning, Assistant Presiding Officer, members of the Commission. As I've done previously, I would like to start with introducing new employees. Unfortunately, since we are away from Austin, I'm not sure that any of these new employees made the trip out here. Most of them are stationed in Austin and keep the shop running while we're away. Nonetheless, I will introduce them to you and to the public. But they may be here. I'm not sure if they are or not. If they are, they can certainly stand up. Sammy Mauser is one of our new employees. We have 4 of them. Sammy joined our Special Services team as a program specialist on September 4th. Sammy joins us from her most recent job with the Human Trafficking Division of the Texas Attorney General. She's also held roles at the Cedar Park Police Department, the TCOLE Westinghouse, and National Monuments. Sammy is not here? She's not here. And next, Craig Key joined our IT team as a cybersecurity analyst on September 30th. Craig has a degree in electrical engineering from Texas A&M. He joins us from his most recent job with CBM Archives as a support engineer and systems administrator. Craig is a certified information systems security professional, Microsoft certified Azure security engineer associate, Microsoft certified security operations analyst associate, and a certified information systems auditor. I don't know what any of that is, but I'm glad to have him. As you all know, we are building a very robust cybersecurity platform to protect people's personally identifiable information. So I don't believe Craig is here either. He is back in Austin, making sure that that the TCOLE cybersecurity system is best in the world. And then Felice Garcia joined our enforcement team as a licensing and permit specialist on October 1st. Felice has a degree in criminal justice from the University of Texas, San Antonio. She joins us from her most recent job with Travis County Civil Courts as a judicial executive assistant. She has also held roles at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and the Texas Juvenile Justice Department. She's not here either. And then finally, Hai Nguyen joined our IT division on October 21st as a system administrator. He comes to us with experience as a senior system administrator at Ultra Intelligence Communications. Hai also has IT system administrator experience in his roles at Torchy's Tacos and We Are Blood. He is certified in Microsoft Azure Fundamentals and is a system security certified practitioner. Those are our 4 newest employees since the last commission meeting. We are currently sitting at, as of last week, 86 employees on staff as we strive towards filling all of our vacancies after the new additions from the previous budget year. And as I'll say again, I've said in every meeting, while we want to fill all of our vacancies as rapidly as we can, we are only hiring those that are highly qualified and worthy enough to serve the customers of TCOLE. We drive towards filling those vacancies. Our outreach efforts We have reached well over 225 licensees across the state. We've continued traveling throughout the state, north, south, east, west, throughout the central part of the state. I'll hit a couple of the high points. We've been to McLennan County College and did legislative updates there. Of course, we continue to work with our partners in Lehman. I saw Dr. Ray earlier. I know he's here, whether it's Cullen or his folks teaching in the new chief development or the chief's continuing administration constables classes. We go to the fire marshals discussion groups. There's 4 of those throughout the year. They're in every part of the state. We've been down to the Rio Grande Valley once just to visit with Chief Rodriguez and his folks down here. We've also come and we made a couple of visits before the conference. Sat down with Hidalgo Chief of Police, had dinner, talked about new TCOLE things that are happening. Met in the central part of the state with the Cedar Park Police Chief, went back out to Lubbock, met with the Lubbock Chief of Police and his assistant chiefs. They have a new chief out there. We met with the Lubbock County District Attorney's Office, all of their investigators. We attended the DPS graduation. They graduated 101 new troopers, I believe it was, and we met with a lot of their folks prior to that. I attended the TML conference. Several of us went to IACP here most recently. We've had meetings with the TPCA, Texas Police Chiefs Association Executive Board. One of the more interesting meetings that we had recently, I think you're all familiar with IADLES, the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training. It's a bit of a mouthful. They put on a post-directors retreat, so my counterparts across the country, there was about 31 of us or so that met at the FLETC Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. There was a great meeting, swapped ideas, continuing to work with that group there. Again, I think we do things the best way possible in Texas, but our hubris, we want to keep in check and understand that other states are doing some great things. We want to learn from them, as well as those states want to learn from us as well. We've met with TEA. I did have a great meeting with the Texas Citizens Police Academy alumni. They put on a conference each year. We award TCOLE hours for that. That's been a good meeting there. We've met with our legislative partners, Senator Hinojosa, Representative Sergio Muniz, Senator Morgan Lamantia down here in the Valley. We've also met with Chairman Reggie Smith. We've testified at the Texas Homeland Security Council, Senate Committee on Border Security. Those are some things. Several media interviews that we've done across the state, mainly on the public license lookup. That has piqued a lot of interest since it just took effect September 1st. So we've had several media outlets ask us questions about that. There's been some contentious concerns across the state. We've been able to answer those, I think, pretty well. I think there continues to be a lot of a little bit of misunderstanding with our licensed community. We're doing our best to make sure people understand that it's information that was already public. The public license lookup just simply makes it more easily available to the public without having to file a public information request. And then I'll touch real briefly on, as you recall, at our last commission meeting, we had the strategic plan from Strategic Government Resources that came out. You have the report that they provided to us in your notebook. It was a workshop retreat that they did for us. Some of the key areas, strategic pillars that we discussed, they've gone well. We looked at what went well, what's not gone well within the key areas of communication, database decision-making, and innovation. And we've really begun already to work well on things that we're doing and looking at how we can apply those things to that. We've also looked at things that maybe we are doing we don't need to do or we need to tweak up or down. We conducted a SWOT analysis and compared that to a SWOT analysis that we did many years ago, several years ago. What are our internal strengths? What are our internal weaknesses? What are the external opportunities for TCOLE? And what are the external threats to TCOLE? We did that in this exercise, and we've taken those on board. And then milestones were updated after being developed for each of the strategic pillars of communication, database decision-making, and innovation. And how do we use those to make sure that the organization is moving in the right direction to fulfill the vision of TCOLE that you all provide to us. And then finally, I want to very quickly give you an update in terms of some of the new legislation of minimum standards to create or to continue the operation of a law enforcement agency. Since September 1st of 2024, new agencies that have been created, there's been a total of 9. 5 of those were ISD police departments. 1 was a college police department. 2 were county attorney investigator agencies, and 1 was a telecommunicator agencies. In the pipeline right now, agencies that have applied, that we are working with in the pipeline, there are 67 agencies applying to be stood up right now. The breakdown of those, there are 23 ISD police departments, 3 charter or private schools, 2 church police departments, church school police departments, 7 municipal police departments, 18 fire marshal's offices, 3 city marshal offices, 7 county attorney investigator offices, and 4 communication centers. That concludes my report. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have for me.
Director Stevens, of all those agencies that we've either approved and the ones in the pipeline, have we said no to any? Have we denied any?
We have.
How many of those have we denied?
I don't have that in front of me. What has typically happened, what we've seen, so the first question that we have set, and you'll recall from my previous the commission meeting, is trying to take the intention of the legislature. The first hurdle is, does it meet a public benefit to the community? And we've impaneled several of our folks, includes the directors, and Sergeant Jones and Captain Canella present to us that, and we've tried to stop and say, don't do anything else until we assess that. And in that, we look at what is the crime picture? Is it, how many calls for service? Who's answering those calls right now? How long does it take them to get there? And we try to make an assessment, and we've turned away some. Now, they come back later on with more information. I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that we're trying to struggle with right now are the ISD agencies, because they're trying to meet their requirements under House Bill 3, which does come in conflict with Senate Bill 1445. They butt up against each other, and so we're trying to make smart decisions with that. If the agency comes back and we can see that it does meet a public benefit, then we move on to do they have a sustainable source of funding? And we've tasked Brian's unit with that. We have experts in finance that can answer that question for us, because we want to know, is this agency going to still exist a couple of years from now? Do they meet that sustainable source of funding? So we've tried to create that step-by-step process for it. I can get you the number that we've said we don't see that in this first step, and find out how many of those have come back around. I know that some have not.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the executive director? Can you hear us down at the end? You all good? Anything else? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to credentialing, education, field, and special services report. I don't know what kind of acronym you can get out of that, Colin, but Colin Grissom.
It's a good crew, Commissioner. Commissioners, good afternoon. In your packet, you'll find updates on a lot of the numbers, but I want to take the time to highlight some things coming out of each of those sections of the agency. One is new courses that we've published or are about to publish. Out of the last legislative session, there was a budget rider requiring us to work on an elementary student outreach course, and that course has been published. The online version is in development. It will be available on the My TCOLE. Another required us to update some of the missing persons information, and so we retitled a course, and it's Analyzing Missing Persons Investigations. Again, came out of the 88th session. The face-to-face version was published August 21st. We have a standing committee seat on the Texas Jail Commission's Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. We're on that because we train the licensees for jail staff. That board has updated the information based on the output of that advisory board. So that course has been updated, and then we are on the hook to develop an intellectual and developmental disabilities course for peace officers. So we're lucky in being able to leverage the products of the IDD advisory committee from the jail commission, and we're working on putting some of those concepts into the patrol context. And so we are currently working on that. The jail course is actually out for public comment. No, the public comment is ended, sorry. But we'll take public comment anytime it comes. Some upcoming projects, we're working on a proctor course for those people who administer our state examinations. We're looking at requiring them to get on my TCOLE and take a test proctoring course. That's one of the things when we go in to evaluate those organizations that are contracted with us to provide state licensing exams. There tends to be a high turnover rate in some of those positions, so we want to build an easily accessible course and require before somebody takes or proctors a state examination for one of our licensees or potential licensees that they successfully complete that proctor course. So that's one of the projects that we're working on. Worked with the governor's task force on sexual assault to update the trauma-informed approach to sexual assault investigations. I want to remind the audience who runs the basic peace officer course that we published updates to the BPOC and the sexual assault and family violence chapter as a result of working with the governor's task force. We also updated the missing and exploited children, or missing and exploited chapter because of what came out of last session. Both of those were published August 12. They must be implemented for any course starting January 1 going forward. So that new curriculum, we've got some time to build that in. You can use that new curriculum now. You must use it starting January 1. So we just held a kickoff meeting. One of the courses that we've had a lot of feedback on that needs to be reviewed and revised is the new supervisor course, the required course 3737. We held a kickoff meeting for that course October 2nd, and so we're actively working on that course with subject matter experts to update that course. I know the executive director has got some strong feelings about some of the content of that course, so we're trying to drive that in more of a leadership direction than it's always been kind of a perfunctory, EEOC and things new supervisors need to know, but we want to look at it as more through a leadership lens with that course. So we're excited to crack that course open and get that done. Subsequent to changes in the BPOC, a course that people often overlook is the basic jail course for licensed peace officers, kind of a transitional course. So when a sheriff hires a peace officer but wants to use them in the jail, they still have to acquire that jail license. Well, that's one of the courses that hasn't been updated in a while, so we've got that one open and in process right now. I've given you numbers in your packet on what we're looking at with our newer courses on my TCOLE in terms of student enrollment. Credentialing, you'll notice that if you're wandering around the conference, there is no credentialing staff at the conference. They are back working on our behalf, keeping the office and the system running. They're handling approximately 7,100 calls since the last meeting. We're still running at or about an call abandonment rate of 1.5% to 1.7%. So I'm I'm happy with that rate. It's hard to beat that with the volume of calls that we have from both licensees and agencies that are going through 5 current staff. We are actively interviewing for our last position in that. We do have an opening, but we're hoping to fill that soon. Y'all had asked in the past the turnaround time for email responses to credentialing help desk. Most of those get turned around in 24 hours is still the average. Depending on volume, that fluctuates. Sometimes it's 48 hours, but I know Commissioner Hester, you'd asked for what our turnaround was. We're processing L1s in about 3 days' time. We're processing L1Ts a little bit faster at 2 days. Field service agents, year-to-date totals out of the last fiscal year, committed 1,208 audits, 331 of which were audits with deficiencies, requiring some form of follow-up. They did 169 training provider evaluations. Just as a reminder, field services assumed the role that the ACEs used to play. We converted ACEs into field training, into field service agents, so that we could expand the number of regions. And so the same people that did 1,208 audits also did 169 training provider evaluations in the last fiscal year. Boss gave a lot of the updates out of special services with the processing of new agency applications. If you're looking at the school marshal program, we currently have 553 school marshals serving 95 school districts, so that's obviously grown post-Uvalde, more than doubled, or close to doubled since just that event, certainly since Santa Fe. We've issued new training contracts a new training contract to Wharton County Sheriff's Department. We've renewed both the Euless Police Department and Houston ISD's Police Department training contracts. We've activated the agencies that the chief spoke about, and that is my report, and I'm open for any questions.
Commissioners, any questions? Director Grissom, I have a couple. On your L1 approved and rejected, when you count those numbers, if they're rejected and ultimately approved later, is that showing up in the data here, or how are you counting that number?
If they're, the L1's approved is approved on the first try, so we're not recycling. The single most common reason we deny an L1 is there's not a BCF, a background confirmation form, sorry. There's not the required background confirmation form. That normally we give 3 days, 72 hours, for that form to show up. If the background confirmation form doesn't show up, we drop the L1 out of the queue. We don't count the time period for the person to become compliant in those numbers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that one, if let's just say I forgot to do the BCF the first time I did it, and then I sent it to you, it's not showing up in the rejected, or are you saying it is showing up?
It's going to show up as a rejected. Okay, if you remedy it, it's going to basically get counted again on the past side.
So I don't know that that's I'll leave that to you guys. I don't know that that's a true representation of what we're seeing here, because when I look at the numbers of 4,119 approved and 346 rejected, I find it hard to believe that we have that many being rejected. I think truly rejected for a disqualification or something completely wrong is really the number that this is really looking for. So
Okay, yeah, I think I understand what. Yeah, that is not a true number of rejected for cause. Either the person's not licensable. No, that is an administrative rejection because it doesn't meet. It may be remedied later.
Correct. But I think as we massage these numbers, because if you remember during Sunset or prior to, one of the things where we weren't getting these types of numbers, and you guys have done a great job of being able to provide us that. But I think every once in a while, we need to look at it and say, what is the intent behind why we want this number? And for me, it's like, okay, how many are we catching that don't need to be L1, right? There was some other issue, instead of just showing the ones that have some administrative error, or I forgot to attach the BCF to it.
Yeah, that number would be significantly lower.
Yes.
And we can suss that out.
Okay. Let's talk about the state exam proctor course. So, and it's been a hot minute for me. If I don't have that state exam proctor course, am I going to be able to log in to proctor the exams prior to? Like, or is this on honor system?
Our intent is to set up to where we would have to see that on your record before you would be authorized to log in and proctor.
But it's not currently there yet.
Correct.
Okay. What problem are we trying to fix?
Periodically, we have either complaints from students or it's found in evaluations or audits, if you will, of exam sites, because we have some standalone exam sites. We have some academies who also have an exam site. So it shows up periodically. One of the things that's required of an exam site is there's a form that says if you're proctoring an exam, you have read the exam proctor's manual and you understand what your responsibilities are. We'll go in to evaluate that site. None of those forms are executed. All of the people there, we don't have evidence that they have completed that. So we're trying to build a system where they can do it themselves. We can see it on our end and take that away as an audit finding. We'll know who's been there because we've sent them to my TCOLE account to complete that short course.
Okay, so you're saying it's going to be a less than 1 hour course?
Oh, yeah. It's basically the restrictions placed that you can't have electronic devices, can't have note-taking, but all of the things that we require in the proctoring of a state examination, and we'll have an affirmative proof that they have been exposed to that before they're allowed to proctor an exam.
Okay. I like the information that we get on the new course updates, like we get those pretty regular. I can remember whenever back before I got on the commission, when I chaired the BPOC review, there for the first 6 months that we made all the changes to the BPOC, and I can't remember what hours we went to then, but we did kind of a strike-through underline of the curriculum and posted both, right? A strike-through, just like new legislation or rule.
Yes, strike-through and
then a clean version. And some of the ones I was looking at, there wasn't a strike-through underline version for us to know what exactly did you change in all the courses there were new courses, the updates to existing courses, right? So the BPOC, we talk about the update to sexual assault and family violence, but what exactly are we changing with that? And so that requires us, or if I was still teaching that class, I would have to go through and do a side-by-side versus kind of the norm is the strike-through underline with that. So I don't know if that's just I think it'd be something to be beneficial. I don't know, but.
Well, one of the things we try and do is a support document. So you're correct. We have not been doing the kind of strike out, replace, page 7 with the new page 7. But there should be an accompanying document when we do that, and it says the following objectives have changed. And so I certainly look into that.
And then on that same token, I'm going to go back to my state exam questions that are out of these changes. And I'm assuming I know that we haven't, I'm still going to talk about it and say we need to get that shored up on the state exam.
Well, mechanically, the way we do that is all of our state exam questions are slaved within the system to a learning objective. So if we change a learning objective, we can go into the system and see what questions are drawn from that learning objective. So mechanically, we retire those. We can't make them go away, and there's a reason behind that. But we retire them so a student doesn't see those. So the minute they're on the hook for that, we can retire them and repopulate new questions.
So are we doing that? Are we doing that now?
We're doing that now.
Okay.
However, if you look at the new changes in the current curriculum, what we'll do is retire questions that are obsolete, but we won't insert new questions on that objective until the objective becomes a requirement, in this case, January 1.
Correct.
So an academy's not penalized for starting on
There's a
new
window
material.
where it's not going to be seen.
Yes, we look at those things individually.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to redirect back to the question about the rejections. Can you break that data out when it's presented to say rejected for these reasons? That would kind of answer that question of what was included as BCF versus what was a disqualifying factor or some other reason.
Yes, sir. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I had the same thought. Maybe just administrative rejections and rejections for cause or something that simple.
All right, any other questions for Deputy Chief Grissom? Before I move on to the next report, I do need to make an announcement. Public comment cards are to your left, our right over here. If you have public comment, that agenda item will be coming up later. Please sign up so that we make sure that we get the card so we can call on you for that. With that, I would like to move to Information and Technology Report. Jessica Capardo.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to start off with the conference. Our goal was to have at least 1,000 attendees register, and we met that. We had roughly 1,075. I think that's a pretty good turnout considering that we're in a new location. I've got a few reminders for the audience. So we have a social hour event in the exhibit hall tonight from 5 to 7. There are over 100 exhibitors over there that you can visit with. Unlike past conferences where everything was in one location on the Convention Center grounds, this year we've actually got 2 locations going on, which we've all figured out by now. We've got the Performing Arts Center that we're at now in the Convention Center. So I want to clarify that everything that's going on tomorrow is happening entirely at the Convention Center. We will not be over here tomorrow. But on Wednesday morning, the final day of the conference, we will have a general session over here in the morning and in the afternoon back at the Convention Center. For those of you who are in a vehicle, the best place to park is just outside the Performing Arts Center here, in between the Performing Arts Center and the Convention Center. You can get to these parking lots from Houston Ave. We hope everybody is enjoying McAllen so far. We will be returning to this venue next year, and we'll announce next year's conference dates and make hotel spaces available in March. We were able to launch our public license lookup application on time and met our deadline. We've already got over 3,400 public users registered. This is not the same thing as licensed users. In fact, we created public license lookup accounts for everyone who has a TCOLE account. So this 3,400 is public users who have registered, which could be license holders who created a public account, but it is not the same count as the license holders who have an account through their TCOLE. I think the public license lookup is a good example of the way that we're approaching our development of technology going forward. we took lots of extra steps and precautions to be sure to keep private data private and keep all of the information confidential that is classified as confidential information. We also designed the application in a very easy and simple to use way. And the features, there's new features contained within it that give it a more modern feel as well as a more modern look. When we launched the public license lookup, we also launched the unified login, which we call IAM. IAM stands for the Identity and Access Management. This was a necessary step to launching public license lookup because of the login feature that was required for public license lookup. And it will become a necessary feature as we start rolling out the rest of our technology projects related to the Sunset Bill. And I do want to mention, when we launched the IAM, it did have a very high impact on both the licensed community as well as our TCOLE staff. We've changed the login before in the past and have experienced a high call volume as a result, but this time we had such a huge, dramatic wave of phone calls and tickets at the beginning that we actually had to adjust and pull resources from the rest of the agency to help cover so we could get back on track and handle calls live. So I would like to thank credentialing, legal, enforcement, and special services who all came in to help our IT team with the support calls and tickets. And you know, if you want more information about that, it's included on page 36 and 37 of your notebook. But I'm proud that as of today, we have recovered or re-enrolled 91% of TCLEDS users who were active prior to the launch. The remaining users we will proactively reach out to after the conference is over so that we can check to see if they still need their account, and if so, can we help them get logged in proactively. And that's the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
Commissioners.
I've got one.
Commissioner Berry, go ahead.
When y'all accessed the IAM, or when y'all went live with the IAM, was it deleting accounts and then you had to create a new account if you were on there? So I've had a few officers have some issues trying to get access in, and so they kept trying to hit forgot my password, and they were having some issues with that. So I was wondering, did it delete an account and you had to create a new account?
No. No accounts were deleted or removed, but some accounts did not migrate with all of the correct permissions, and so we had to work through some bugs at the beginning.
I know it's been a heavy lift, so thank you for your all's hard work on that.
Commissioner West, did you have something?
Yeah, two things. So on the charts here, you have the abandoned calls. That's directly related to the rollout of the IAM.
Yes.
And then further down, you have the registered users, and it shows a significant drop of more than a third on page 5. The MyTCOLE registered users and the online training.
Yes. The MyTCOLE account, the registered users we're currently only at 47% re-enrolled as of today.
Okay.
But that is to be expected, though MyTCOLE account users use their accounts less frequently than the TCLEDS users. So we won't expect to see that number really start rising until we approach the end of the training unit.
And then in my case, I had both a MyTCOLE and a TCLEDS account. You combine those, so are we going to have a number of those users that are just not going to be back for that reason?
No, we can still differentiate the accounts. So The numbers that you're seeing are in the new IAM login.
Okay.
Commissioner Burris? You good?
I couldn't understand a couple. It's hard for, at least for me, with my deafness to hear the other commissioners when they speak, which leads me to believe they probably also can't really hear what I'm saying. But as long as you know and the audience can hear, but this question is going back, you were saying now we're at like 96%?
91%.
91, 94. What's the actual number of users that you all are going to have to go out and reach to complete? It can just be an approximate, Jessica. Is it like 1,000 people or like 100 people?
No, it's around 500 people.
Okay. Thanks.
Commissioners,
Commissioner Hester, certainly to Commissioner Burris and Commissioner West had noted a few minutes ago, as far as the sound goes and being audible for commissioners on both ends, I've certainly experienced some difficulty as well. If we could, on some of the mics, I think they're not coming through the stage monitors. If we could get an adjustment on that, that might be helpful. Thanks.
all right, moving on to the enforcement report, Deputy Chief TJ Vineyard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm going to start with something new that we haven't dealt with in past meetings. We're now processing reports of failed medical and psychological examinations. One of the first things we did is Deputy Chief Grissom put together a technical assistance bulletin to guide academies and contract providers on this process. There is a related rule on the agenda here that we'll discuss, but this all comes from the new model policies that directed agencies and academies to start reporting failed examinations as of September 1st. One of the other things we did prior to September 1st was we updated the L2 and L3 forms. Those have been up on the website for some time. Most agencies seem to be using the new forms, but if there are those present who are using the old L2 and L3, just a reminder, you can get those on the TCOLE forms page. The forms direct the agency and training provider and the doctor to make report to TCOLE of a failed examination. The idea behind this is we know there are some agencies that give the form to a licensee and allow the licensee to pick their own doctor, and some of those may not return to the agency if they fail. So the doctors reporting the failures to us give us an opportunity to catch those that we might not otherwise catch. We've had very positive feedback from both agencies and the doctors in particular who deal with these regularly have followed up with us about particular concerns or particular processes to make sure that they're meeting our needs. This is encouraging since we don't have rule authority over the doctors, but most of them are pretty committed to the process, that they do these regularly and they understand the importance and they believe in their work, and so they're making an effort to work with us. The other noticeable change on the L2 and L3 is that the licensee signs that form before it goes to the doctor. We wanted to make sure that, I'm sorry, I said licensee. It could be an applicant who doesn't yet have a license, but anyone who's going to get evaluated, we want it to be clear that this is not just something that's going back to the agency, but it is also going to the state regulatory agency, that TCOLE will receive these documents. I think we all understand that that's how it would work, but we wanted to make sure that at the time they're taking it to the doctor, they had that same understanding, so it's on the actual form. That also makes the doctors a little more comfortable in sharing with us. They understand the intent and they know that the person who came there understood the intent. In addition to the L2 and L3, there is a new Fit for Duty examination form on the website. So I make a real effort to talk about these with different terms. The L2s and L3s we refer to as applicants. Those are people who are applying for a license or applying for a job and they're being evaluated. The Fit for Duty form is completely different. Those are the people who are currently appointed, and the chief administrator has recognized the reason that they need to be evaluated again. So we're making a real effort to be clear in our terminology and separate those two because those are very different circumstances. All of those failure reports come to us primarily through email, fitforduty@tcole.texas.gov. It's on all the forms. There are a few large agencies that have large numbers, and we've created methods for them, but this is all a bridge to what we hope to have as an integrated online system that'll be part of the new hiring process. So This new process that we're building now is temporary till we get to a more comprehensive system. We don't have a records division yet. We don't have the staffing. So while this is being processed through enforcement right now, when we get these failed reports, one of the first things we do is place an administrative hold on the licensee's profile. A lot of these people who are applying don't necessarily have a license yet, so we actually create a profile and assign them a PID, and we're working on a process to notify them that you've been assigned a PID. If they're currently appointed, then we notify the agency that they're currently appointed with that we've received a report of a failure and how they can obtain information on that. In most cases, we're wanting to let the chief administrator review that information and make the determination whether they believe a fit for duty is necessary or not. That is the decision of the chief administrator at the agency where they're currently appointed. We're just being the conduit to pass on the information so they're aware. When we get these failure reports, particularly on the applicants, what the concept is, what we're trying to accomplish, is we go back to the agency and we get the context that the doctor considered, the personal history statement, the L2 or L3 form. I'm sorry, if it is a medical evaluation, we just need the job duties description and the actual form itself. Those evaluations are simpler, and then the doctor's report. The psychological evaluations follows the rule, so the things that the doctor will consider, the PHS, the background investigation report, and the job duties description that they got and their report. We gather all those documents together, so when they get a subsequent evaluation, the next doctor can not only consider the prior doctor's failure report, but the context that he considered, the documents that he looked at. All those are stored in a secure report, and then we make those available on future requests. So the simple concept is if an applicant fails, we capture the packet of what the doctor considered, and then when they go apply somewhere else, that doctor does a new examination but reviews the past doctor's failure report. One of the things that we're working on educating now, because we're placing administrative holds in these cases, is how agencies in the hiring process can confirm whether or not a licensee has an administrative hold. So they can find out early in the process what the reason for that is, and they can do the proper evaluation on their side. The last thing that we want is for them to go through the entire process only to find out someone failed an exam somewhere else and then have to repeat the medical or psychological exam in their process. The fit for duty examinations are very similar. So we are getting reports of people who failed to fit for duty, but they're continuing their appointment. That wasn't the intent of the rule. We're working on educating people. If a licensee, for example, fails a fit for duty, a medical fit for duty, and the doctor prescribes a program for them to restore that ability and go back to work, as long as they continue the treatment and continue the appointment, that does not need to be reported to TCOLE. If they separate without restoring that ability, or if they refuse to engage in treatment, then that has to be reported to us and we place a hold on them. But when the agency is working with someone to rectify the problem and go back to work, if they're able to get cleared by a doctor after treatment, then that does not have to be reported to TCOLE.
Chief, real quick, I believe Commissioner Burris has a question. Commissioner Burris.
Just before we get too far down the road, so if we have not a licensee, I think kind of being rehabilitative is something different from an L2, L3 perspective than, coming in from a BPOC and trying to become a licensee. Do we have a number of times that you can fail your medical, your mental evals, where we just say you can't apply anymore, like you can't apply after 10 times or 20 times, or is there a number?
And I'm not sure I'm clear. Are you talking about the applicants or on a fit for duty evaluation? On the applicants?
The applicants, on the applicant side.
So we're learning as we go. We couldn't foresee all the scenarios we have, but for example, we have some who have failed and they're at a civil service agency that gives them the ability to appeal to a 3-doctor panel. And so we have some who've already received 4 failure reports. If they apply with another agency, that doctor will have to review all 4 failure reports, all 4 documents. We're capturing each of those incidents now, and so they won't get to just look at the last doctor. They need to look at the totality of the information that we have captured. There is the potential that a 5th doctor could sign off, but that seems less likely as we continue.
So do we have thoughts on creating that? So like for the bar exam, for example, it's not across the nation where you can, most states, you can take the bar exam as many times as you want. Texas, you got 5. You fail after 5, you can't be a lawyer in Texas anymore.
The short answer is no. A person could go and be psychologically evaluated many times as they could. It'd be up to that hiring chief administrator to accept that finally passed psychological evaluation. But no, there is no maximum time that's in the rules or that's in statute.
And I don't want to throw up roadblocks to people who are maybe, in the middle of some kind of crisis or some kind of physical ailment where later on they would be able to qualify to come in. Like, I don't want to throw up roadblocks in that sense, but yeah, I was just kind of wanting to get a sense of, what is this looking like as we're going through this process now?
And I think that's the most important thing. So we know that those have occurred in the past, but we didn't know to what scale. I don't think anybody would have projected the numbers that we're seeing. So I think over the next 6 months to a year, we'll be able to create useful data, and we'll be able to see how many of those people there are. I think that's going to be a very, very small number, but it's going to be a very important number. And so we'll be able to look at those to see what's happening in those particular cases. That's definitely what we're looking at now, as my team is highlighting particular cases that we need to track through.
That'll help us make a data-driven decision on something like that.
So just to be clear, you have 3 chances to take the state licensing exam, and then you got to repeat your whole training curriculum. So we do have that portion. And I want to just, people that go through things in life that end up having to go through a fitness for duty, or they get a psychological to where they're not recommended at that time. And when you talk to the psychological doctors, they'll tell you they are going through something in that period of time that is not a forever blemish, and it's not a forever thing to keep you from staying in law enforcement. And I think we need to be careful on, it's already hard enough to get cops to ask for help. When we start going down this path, we're going to go down a path to where they're not going to want to seek help. And so as we go through this, we need to tread very carefully and methodically and slow in how we do this. In my personal opinion as a commissioner, that the goal here is to help people get help. When you talk about current licensees that come in and they're going through that, we need to get them the help. Everyone is redeemable in that aspect. New hires coming in, you can't just doctor shop to get somebody to get you one. You're going to have to, all the doctors are going to have to look at all the other stuff. And so there's a little bit of difference there with that, and I think that's the general part. But as long as we're not doing things that are keeping the current licensees from asking for help when they need to get help is the key here. So anything, go ahead.
To your point on the 3 failures on the licensing exam, I do think it's important to keep in mind we have seen doctors who, for example, I feel like their decision-making is too rigid or they're too inflexible, but in another smaller agency, the doctor feels like they would be a very good fit there and they're fine. So I have seen some that failed and then passed in the second one, and the doctors could give very specific reasons why. There's definitely the possibility that they could fail in certain, they wouldn't be a good fit and would fail in certain situations or for a particular license type and might be okay in another. So when we start counting, it's a little bit different than the exam in that sense.
Yes, sir.
I have a question before we move on as well. I know we can't direct the doctors to submit the form. We don't have jurisdiction over the doctors. But is there something on one of these forms that says, under penalty of perjury, I've submitted every, doctor's form that I've, been to see to the agency? That way there's, maybe they lie and you don't catch them all, but there's at least some kind of threat of, enforcement or something of lying to a governmental agency, anything like that?
And I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you talking about like the licensee or the applicant?
Yeah, so the applicant, if they go get, a mental evaluation and they doctor shop and they go to 3 doctors and submit one, is there something on the form that says, I've submitted every, doctor's form that I've been to for these L2, L3s for this application, and, they swear to it under penalty of perjury, or they get it notarized or something like that?
There is not right now, but I think that there is an opportunity to catch that. So the personal history statement is a comprehensive document that everyone has to fill out in the application process. It's due for revision for some other reasons anyway. And now that we're seeing L2 and L3 failures, that's something we'll need them to disclose in that document. So when we revise that form that we require everyone to use, we can capture that.
Thank you.
The last part of this is you can see it.
One more second. I think somebody turned on Commissioner.
I had one, because of me having an academy where I do the applicants, just to clear up, because again, some of the sound, it's hard for me to understand. So I will, I guess not yet, be able to access TCLEDs and look and see if some of my applicants have had a failure, if I understand that right? Or they're on hold, as you're calling it?
Right. There could be a lot of reasons that someone has an administrative hold, including a pending criminal charge or other things. So you would see an administrative hold, and then you would have to inquire directly with TCOLE. Okay. We're not going to make it visible that someone has a medical or psychological failure. You would only be able to get that information if you have a release of information and you're, considering either enrolling or appointing that person.
Okay, so if I look them up, it'll show administrative hold or nothing at all type deal.
It would show active, I think, is what most of them show.
Okay, because I know like those A5s that we fill out, I can't access those. So I just was wanting to know, make sure it is the A, is this going to be more where we can actually see those? So.
And then some of the presentations we're doing later, we actually have it shown where everyone can see. But for what most people are doing when they run the F5R process, it prints the PSR, and in the top right corner it will show. In the public license lookup, administrative holds don't show.
Right.
Because again, we're not making that necessarily public. But agencies should be using TCLEDs, and when they pull the PSR, generally through the F5R process, they'll see it there.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, when you're back to what we've been discussing about how many of those failures or those, they go to one doctor and they don't accept them, they go to another one. Is that something that could be, and I know it was mentioned this morning in the morning session, is that something the advisory boards can actually address in an application kind of situation, or?
So agency.
If you say you have an applicant and you find out in the background that they've been denied 2 or 3 times on a psych or a physical, and now they're applying at our academy, is that something to, and it may not be the right person to ask, but I know you had mentioned advisory board sets out the rules of how we run our academy.
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe it's within the purview of the advisory board for an academy to set the enrollment standards, and they can be above the state minimum standards.
Okay.
So if a duly constituted advisory board says we're not accepting people for this reason.
Okay.
And the other thing that we've seen is, and this is one of the changes that we talked about this morning, is the academy should have a doctor or a series of doctors that they're working with.
And
they can restrict their students to go to that doctor, and if that doctor fails them, there's no automatic, unless the academy gives them one.
Okay.
There's no automatic appeal. If you send them to your specified doctor and that doctor fails them, you can reject them as a student, certainly.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
TJ, I just want to make sure that I'm following. On a fitness for duty examination for medical, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear. So if you have an officer that has some sort of medical condition and the chief gives them a fitness for duty evaluation as part of the model policies and says, go make sure you can still perform your job function, and the doctor says, Jason can't do it, but he needs to be on light duty for a while he fixes his knee or whatever ailment that I have, and I'm in a modified job duty request, a bona fide job offer where I'm doing office duty, and everything's progressing along, you don't need to know about that. Is that what you're saying?
That is your agency, your chief administrator's business. You are working to restore that ability.
Okay, but if the chief sends me the deal because I got a bum knee and I tell the chief to pound sand, I'm not going, or the doctor says, Jason, you need to do therapy and you need to not carry a badge and gun, and I say, y'all go, no, I'm going to do what I want, then you want to know about those. And is that the clear line of when on a medical, when does TCOLE want to be notified on a fitness for duty?
Right. If you refuse the evaluation,
Okay,
if you refuse the treatment or can't restore the ability, if you get to a final failure, so you exhaust you go through rehab 3 times and you've burned all your sick leave, and eventually when you get to the point of separation, if you've not restored that ability, then it needs to be reported to us. But it's worded in the model policy, I think, as a final failure.
Final failure.
So you could even, you do 3 months of rehab, you go back to the doctor, you still don't have enough range of motion, he recommends a new program, he fails you again. But again, as long as you're engaging in the treatment, your agency still supports you, continue your appointment. That's between you and your agency and your chief administrator. Okay. We only need to know if it could impact another agency if you leave and could get hired by someone who doesn't know about that, right? That's the intent.
and so if I take a medical retirement because of that, because of something that happened on duty,
Still needs to be reported
still needs to
us.
be reported?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with what right looks like with this, so, okay. Thank you. Continue.
The last part of this, there is a chart in there showing you the L2 and L3 failure reports and fit for duties we receive by week. This goes against everything I talk about. You can't tell much from a chart built by week, but I just wanted to show you we're up 25 to 30 a week right now. That I would estimate 2,000 a year is what we will process coming from agencies. Not all agencies are reporting yet, but that is a lot of paperwork. We've hired 1 temp employee to help with this. I have an exceptional team that makes me proud to come to work every day, but right now they're carrying the load of this, and not just that, but they're helping work through all these scenarios and then support the agencies that still want to hire these people or work with them and how we're going to document and carry that out. And then most importantly, like Commissioner Burris pointed out, identifying those scenarios, making sure we've thought those through, and then what data do we need to capture so 6 months, a year from now, we can look and see where these are. But we are headed that direction. In my report, I also have numbers on training compliance. I've talked about what I call the straggler compliance, those 5 classes that we're finally trying to capture and clean up. That all got put on hold. We were in line behind the cloud migration, the unified login, and the public license lookup. We've now, working with Jessica's team, have a functional report, and we're able to make notifications. So it's our intent to pick that up in November, send another round of notifications and try to get those resolved by the end of the year. Our school-based law enforcement compliance project was able to stay on track. We did have functional reports there. We're down to roughly 150 that exceeded 180 days after we sent them 3 notifications. Those have been assigned to enforcement investigators, and they're working on agreements with all of them to get that resolved within 90 days. We normally give you 60 days, but because they're school officers and it requires 2 courses, I felt it was fair to give them a little bit longer period to make sure that we don't interfere with the work that they're doing. We do have a system in place now where all new school officers assigned to a school district get notified within the first 30 days that they need to get that school-based law enforcement certificate. They get a reminder around 60 days and a reminder around 90 days. All of the officers who failed to get it despite the notices, their chief administrators got an email, not only that explained that, but walked them through how to go into TCOLEs, how to run the report, how to see who in their agency has or does not have the certificate, and those that do not have, what class they're missing. So we've had positive feedback. There were a few agencies that didn't fully understand the rule and the requirement, and I believe that they're all getting there now. The last thing in here are the wrap back numbers. We're holding steady around, I think, a 91% subscription rate. We're still working to resolve a few small groups that we know are available, but we're not able to subscribe to. We are now much better able to identify agencies that are not entering people correctly. So what the most common problem we see is agencies that are still hiring people, doing a hard card for prints, and then appointing them the day they do the prints, mailing them off to DPS, and then they don't get results for 3 to 7 days, depending on the circumstances. So sometimes they get back a hit that they didn't identify before. You need to have your fingerprint returned before you appoint someone, and all the agencies that I've contacted that have that problem have found a simple solution so that they're not doing that anymore. I think that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Commissioner Lamo has
TJ, I wanted to commend you on, with all of the new rules and all of the new data that we are getting in, I wanted to commend you on anticipating what would be important to review and assess and begin bringing that to us. So great job on that. Question on your report on the appointment of prohibited persons. We're continuing to see significant increases from 22 through this year. I guess my question is, what are we doing to prevent that? Or what can we do? How can we help prevent that?
Yes, ma'am. That's a good question. And I think you do need to understand the source of the numbers. So certainly the large number of people we're subscribing to in Ratback, and now the speed at which we are. So even if you, in the example I gave, you appoint someone, you fingerprint them, 5 days later you get your fast return and you realize they have a Class A that you missed, and you separate from them, I will still see that now, we'll still open a case, and we'll still do an investigation. In the past, we never saw those people. We never saw those. So the increase is in the number of cases we're catching. As far as what we're doing about it, in the short term here, I have 2 of my investigators putting on a presentation about background investigations, which will be helpful. I'm doing a presentation on lessons learned from enforcement investigations, which is intended to help people see some of the mistakes that we commonly see. By and large, the mistakes we see are they don't know the rule, they don't understand the process. They're not intentional acts where someone's trying to get around or beat the system. So I think communication and education are always our priority. My team, and I've talked about this in past meetings, we built a 24-hour background investigation course that is finally complete. We're going to work on that with the field service agents. My goal is that we regularly teach that in Austin, that if you appoint someone as a new background investigator, that you know every 2 or 3 months that class is available, they can go there. And then more importantly, that the FSAs are able to teach or co-teach in their regions so that everyone can go to a class and not just get the material directly from us, but get it through your field service agent, who is the one that we can't teach you every scenario, particularly when you look at out-of-state records and expungements and those things, but now I know when I need to call my FSA and what the question needs to be. So that is the direction we're moving to reduce those numbers. I think that the increase you're seeing shows us that the Ratback subscription rate is working and that we are getting to where we need to be.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to Government Relations, Director Grigsby.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As you know, session is rapidly approaching, and so we are continuing our efforts to develop those partnerships that we are going to need going into that session, and making sure that our legislators are familiar with Director Stevens and our agency. The meetings that he mentioned in his report show some of those efforts. A lot of the members are busy until elections next Tuesday, but we will continue those efforts leading into session and do everything that we can to adequately prepare. Some of the other session preparation that we've been doing, we had our legislative appropriations request hearing on September 13th that was comprised of all the staff from Governor's Office, Lieutenant Governor, House Appropriations, Senate Finance, and the Legislative Budget Board. I think there were some really good questions that came out of that about our exceptional items, which are always a good thing. And we've had a few follow-up conversations with our LBB analysts since then, and continue to answer those as we get ready. Bill filing, of course, begins the week after the election, so that will begin November 11th. There have been a few inquiries, but not too many, on bills that would affect TCOLE. So we will take those as they come, and then we've got a couple of our legislative changes that we may look at as we go into next session, and working on who would be willing and able to carry those bills. Since last session, of course, and you've heard public license lookup talked about several times from the director's reports, I really do want to commend our IT team for their work, their heroic work on what I think has been an extremely successful rollout on a short legislative timeline. And I've gotten really good feedback from legislative staff on that, as well as quite a few media inquiries and coverage about the rollout of that. You know, it's a really important piece for public trust, public transparency, and so I think that's something that we can be very proud of, and Jessica and the IT team certainly have been a critical part of that. Another item that we've been working on that will be covered in the next topic, but I wanted to touch on, we sent out an email about applications for the new advisory committees that we've established. We sent that email out on September 24th, and we'll be sending out another one next week and intend to close those applications on November 15th so we can seat those committees and get them rolling. We've gotten 20 applications for the Licensee Wellness Advisory Committee. And I wanted to kind of explain, that was in the email, but a little bit on the background there. The idea is to have an advisory committee look at some of the underlying causes, things like substance abuse, and what has led our licensees to those kinds of situations, and how we can prevent those crisis situations that may then in turn prevent behaviors that result in disciplinary action. So we want to take a comprehensive look at that. We've received 14 applications for the School Marshal Advisory Committee, which is designed to develop their job description, what school marshals should look like, and it could look a little bit deeper than we originally intended, but that is their first mission, is to create a job description for purposes of them taking that job description for psychological evaluations that they're required to do every 2 years. And then finally, of course, with this audience, this is an important one, is the minimum standards to be a training coordinator. What are the things that that individual needs to be well-equipped to do that function? And so I'll cover that a little bit more once we get into the next agenda item. Finally, from my perspective, I wanted to let you all know I've got 3 positions that are posted right now. One is a program supervisor to begin establishing the policies and processes for agencies that will ultimately be submitting personnel files and misconduct investigation reports to TCOLE. We'd like to get ahead of that and let agencies know ahead of time, even before the confidential database is ready, how those files should be saved, how they should be submitted and categorized, and everything like that. And so that individual, should we get the exceptional item that we've requested for a records team, that individual would be the supervisor of that team. Second is a program specialist position to assist with public and stakeholder relations events such as the conference, such as the Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony, the Law Enforcement Achievement Awards, and then there are several ideas that have come out of going to IACP last week that I think we could add on to that portfolio that really would help us get the word out to our stakeholder groups and the public on the different things that TCOLE does and how they can be better plugged in. And then finally, an information specialist position to assist with communications, publications, our social media presence, which is in direct line with what you all have said that you want during our strategic planning session on communication. That position, of course, is available because we are losing Sarah Flott starting next week. I just wanted to give her public recognition that she's played an integral role, not just in the government relations division, but she's been very nimble in working in several different capacities at TCOLE, and we want to wish her very well. And finally, a reminder that we do accept Law Enforcement Achievement Awards nominations throughout the year. We are getting close to the end of the year, and we would love to see those. We will continue accepting those through January 15th. So as a reminder, we accept those nominations in the categories of valor, public service, and professional achievement. And we would love to see those submitted. We know there are many, many cases out there, officers doing great work, licensees, not just officers, doing great work, and we would love to recognize those. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
Commissioner Burris.
I just want to kind of bring a point back home. The Licensee Wellness Committee, you all know my big emphasis for the last 10 years on this commission has been mental health related to our community, but also towards our regulated community. And I'm very excited to see this group forming, hear what they have to do. There's issues throughout our agenda today, related to L2s, L3s, kind of changing some of the policies and having these discussions that we're having. But for all of you in the audience today, know that your physical health, your mental health is of utmost importance to us, and we want you to seek out every resource out there, whether it's the peer network, whether it's something established by your own agency or anyone else out there. We really want you all to talk to people. Your job is incredibly difficult, and I just spoke to a group of people related to mental health and law enforcement earlier last week. And when they heard some of the statistics related, unfortunately, related to our field, your field of law enforcement, with death by suicide, things of this nature, it really brings the point back home. And it's so important to us, not only everything else that you're going to do here today and learn about and be compliant and all that, but you all are important, you do great work, and you deserve every resource to do the challenging work that a lot of people out there obviously don't want to do but cannot do. So thank you all.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right, moving on to the finance report. Director Ross.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. In your package, you will find our usual financial report covering expenditures and revenue. We are in the first quarter of the fiscal year, and I'm pleased to report that our financial position remains strong with some excess due to vacancies. Here's some key highlights and initiatives we've undertaken recently. In human resources operations, we continue to actively expand our team to realize the investment that the legislature has made to Texas law enforcement. In the past 2 months, as the executive director has stated, we have hired 4 new employees with additional job openings currently being advertised. Within financial operations, since our last meeting, we've submitted our LAR, continued internal audit coordination, completed a border security report, an annual financial report, as well as property management and other financial duties. TCOLE also continues to provide resources for multiple school marshal trainings and peer network activities. Currently, we're beginning to work on an annual hub report, a risk management report, public information requests, a change in online credit card payment processing vendors, as well as other financial activities. Soon we'll move into new calendar year-end tasks such as employee W-2s and distributing 1099s to vendors. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, any questions? All right, the next agenda item is going to be number 15, receive public comment on any topic without action. I'm taking the liberty to move that to the front, and we will do that right after a 15-minute break, which means not 30 for you guys because I know how this works. So see y'all in 15 minutes. Action, I have a couple of cards here. The first one, if you filled out one for public comment, please start moving your way forward. David Bello, are you here? Welcome. Mr. Bello, if you would, state your name, who you represent, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is David Bello. I'm from Southeast Texas, over in Jasper, and I'm here on behalf of myself. Let me set up my papers right here. Thank you for allowing public comment so that I am able to bring to your attention a very important issue that I believe needs addressed. There are many outstanding officers in Texas, and a big part of the public being able to trust law enforcement and lift up those good officers is that there is a commission, that this commission keeps track of and alerts the public of when there is a bad officer and when they've separated in less than honorable ways. And this comes in the form of the F5 form that TCOLE is in charge of. So this F5 form is a very important part of what this commission does, and it would be very important for this commission to ensure that there are no falsifications of the F5 form. And if there are found any falsifications, to ensure that they're corrected. Because allowing falsified F5 forms would not only break the trust between the community and law enforcement and bring discredit possibly on the good officers out there, but it would also be allowing a crime to occur, because falsification of a government document is a crime, and the F5 form is a government document. Unfortunately, this has occurred, and that's why I'm here addressing y'all today. And unfortunately, unless the issues underlying this are addressed, there's no telling if it's occurred before, or if it could occur again, or how many times. And so that's why I'm here bringing this to y'all, because I do believe that y'all are honorable members and would take it seriously and address this underlying issue. So let's look at an F5 form, a sample F5 form. There are 3 different areas on the F5 form: honorable discharge, which is retired, resigned, or separated, while in good standing, and not while there's any pending or final disciplinary actions or a documented performance problem. That's honorable. General discharge is retired, resigned, terminated, related to a disciplinary investigation, and that is not included in the definition of dishonorable discharge, or was terminated or retired for a performance problem, not because of reduction in workforce. And then dishonorable discharge was terminated or resigned in lieu of termination in relation to allegations of criminal misconduct, or by insubordination or untruthfulness. So, knowing those 3 checkboxes, you might be surprised to know that there is at least one instance where there's been an F5 form that has been checked off honorable discharge, and that agency that discharged them, there is a termination memo signed by the heads of that department, the Jefferson County District Attorney Office. Their leadership signed a memo stating that an officer that was employed by them was recommended to be terminated. They had determined that he had lied, stole, and was unfit to be an officer of the court. So they all signed this termination report, and that day the officer resigned. So you'd be shocked, I'm sure, to find that this
You got
officer...
1 minute?
Yes.
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute, sorry, yeah. So you'd be shocked to find that this officer's termination, F5 form states honorable discharge. It should be dishonorable discharge. At best, it's general discharge because he resigned, no question about it, in the midst of possible disciplinary action. So his leadership actually tried to amend that form, and they even sent an email, said, hey, this guy's got he's on the Brady list. We have to tell defendants there's a Brady notice on him. The former executive director did not change the form, said that he does not, it's a policy not to change forms because they don't want to be sued by officers who don't like the change from honorable to less than honorable. And so now, this officer, I'll wrap it all up. So we've got an instance, at least one, where an F5 form has been falsified, a law has been broken, and there is no policy in place for this commission to retroactively correct these clear falsifications, which brings distrust between the public and the community and the law enforcement, and it's a crime actually as well. And so that's what I'm asking for y'all to do. I've got this F5 form with the officer's name is Marcelo Malfino. I've got his F5 form. I've got his termination notice. I'd like to give these to you, and I think it's bigger than him. I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed so that way y'all have a policy to correct these F5 forms when there's clear and convincing evidence that one has been falsified, which is a violation of the law.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. Your time has expired. We appreciate you
Thank you
coming
very
down.
much.
If you would, leave those documents with the staff at the
I
back
sure
table. The legislature recently changed the F5 form where those designations are no longer on there, and we result in using the background investigation for these particular
Okay.
instances. But
I'm
feel
not
free to
aware of
leave that
that.
out, and we'll have our enforcement staff take care of that.
Thank you
Take a
very
look at
much.
it. Thank you.
For your time.
Chief Solomon Cook, are you here? I know I saw him. There he is. Chief, come on down. Would you please state your name, who you represent, and you have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Solomon Cook. I currently serve as the Chief of Police for the Humboldt ISD Police Department for the past 20 years. I've had an opportunity to work and deal with TCOLE for the past 48 years as a peace officer in our great state. As an agency administrator, I regularly interact with TCOLE employees, and fortunately it's all good. I have once served on your committee as one of the representatives for the TCOLE Standard Committee. It was a great opportunity to discuss the changes agencies leaders are dealing with around the state. These committees are greatly needed, and we ask you to please continue them. I also serve with the TPCA and the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association on their executive boards. My observation as one of the leaders, we deal with TCOLE, and TCOLE embraces us, our organizations, and we greatly appreciate it. And also, we appreciate the sincere effort that TCOLE makes on working with school district law enforcement for our state. I just wanted to come up and briefly state these things because I want to make sure that you know that people appreciate what we see with TCOLE right now. Thank you very much.
Chief, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Joe Munoz. Welcome, sir. Please state your name and who you represent, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Joe Munoz for the Texas School Safety Center. I want to comment on some things that TJ Vineyard alluded to earlier in his report. As you know, the Texas School Safety Center is one of our objectives is to provide school-based law enforcement training to officers throughout the state. And because of the what Deputy Chief Vineyard has done is the notices are now going out, so now we're getting an influx of officers coming to our trainings that have to be compliant. And what I'm here to say is that we are here to offer, we're in the customer service business, and we will open our doors on classes that are full to make sure that these officers are compliant. So if there are any department heads here that need to have some of their officers get in compliance that are restricted with time and our classes are full, we have the ability to open those classes, particularly if there are virtual classes. We can get them in to make sure that that agency and that officer is compliant. So if you just go to our website, send us an email, we'll bounce them and get them in there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else present that would like to make public comment? Hearing none, public comment is closed. I will now take up agenda item number 8 to discuss and take action on the request for Class A waivers of TCOLE Rule 217.1, minimum standards for enrollment and initial licensure. I would first like to call up Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office Sheriff Eric Fagan and Mr. Everett Gary. And if you would, go ahead and get ready there at the podium. I will first turn it over to General Counsel for some opening comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Hester. Commissioners, we provided an extrinsic document here for both you and for the benefit of the crowd. We should have one on the screen up front there. The minimum requirements under 217.1 TCOLE rules excludes anyone who has been convicted or put on probation for a Class A misdemeanor permanently and for a Class B misdemeanor for 10 years. That's revisiting and refreshing our memory on what the minimum standards are, at least as it relates to criminal dispositions. However, for going back at least 15 years or so, Class B waivers were Class B misdemeanors were available for a waiver within 5 years. But the past decade, after a great deal of discussion and deliberation by the Commission put into our rules the waiver ability for a person who has either been convicted or placed on deferred adjudication for a Class A misdemeanor to come to the Commission, the same ability to waive those minimum standards just as a Class B waiver, So what we've done here, this is not an exhaustive chart with all of the information for all of the applications, but what we did want to do is provide you, since we're a little over 10 years now, a 30,000-foot view of the number of, what's been coming to staff level, and what's been coming to the commissioner level, and what's been approved, and what's been denied. We've got 4 or 5 categories of information here. Let's look at the top. You'll see the number of total applications in the last 10 years for Class B and Class A's. You'll see the Class A number is in blue, that's 40. Class B, 15, that's your total, 55 total applications. So now let's get down to it. What's happened to those applications? You'll see the approved Class A's, 22 of that 40, and Class B, 8 of the 15, have been approved. That means they have gone through the staff level. They have ultimately come to the commissioners. They have been voted and approved for the chief administrator, granted the waiver on behalf of the person that they're applying for. That has been 30 times that's happened. Below that, you'll see the denials. Class A waivers have been denied 18 times. Class B waivers have been denied 7 times. For the denials, looking back over the commission meeting minutes, the 17 of these denials have occurred at at staff level. And there's been no categorical offense that has been an automatic denial at staff level. However, there does seem to be a predominance of assault family violences, does seem to take the lead on those type of offenses that do not even go to the commissioners. So the denials, 25 total, 18 on the Class A's, Class B 7, 1 has been denied. That was a Class B waiver actually at the commission level in the last 10 years. Okay, of those approvals, we're going here, of the 30 that were approved by the commissioners, there's Class A, there are 16 that are still actively appointed, because we know the Class A waiver is good only for that particular agency and that particular chief administrator. It is not portable. It is only good for that agency.
without another request for a waiver before the commission. Class B waivers are still, of the approvals, you have 6 that are still actively appointed. No longer appointed out of those approvals, 6 Class A's and 2 Class B's. Is there any questions about any of these overall numbers that we've presented to you? If I can cut this timer off. I was limited to 5 minutes too.
I just have one question. On the no longer appointed, were those just because of retirements, resignations, or were there other relapse issues?
That's a good question. It could be a variety of reasons. We have not dug into the data that far yet. Some of them are just simply unknown, F5 for whatever reason. But we could certainly see if we can ascertain with what ability we have to get that information to get you a number on that.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts or questions? Chief Stevens?
Chief Stevens, if you would address the current one before us for Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office, please.
Yes, sir. The first one that we have up is for a Class A waiver. It is for a theft that at the time was a Class A. It occurred in 1977. The individual has had since then a relatively long law enforcement career, both here locally in the state of Texas and then as a federal agent, and has since let his state license lapse and is now seeking, the sheriff is seeking to hire him back, and he wants to reactivate his Texas peace officer license. However, because this occurred, it was a theft of $20 in 1977. Because it was at the time a Class A misdemeanor, it is prohibitive for him to obtain a license without a waiver, so the sheriff is seeking a waiver to hire him.
Thank you. Sheriff Fagan, if you would, we'll turn the floor over to you to state your name and who you represent, and the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. My name is Eric Fagan, Fort Bend County Sheriff. I want to thank you, the commissioners, for allowing me to come to speak today. I was going to read this letter, but I'm not. I'm just going to speak on behalf of my friend. Gary Everett has been an officer for over 41 years, been an outstanding officer. When he was at the Houston Police Department, we were in the same academy class. Because of his character and leadership, he was voted class president. This offense took place back in 1977 when he was 18 years old at a register. If the actual report, they weren't really sure who actually did it. It was 3 individuals that worked that register, and it came up $20 short. Everett took the blame for it because the other kids were younger than him, and so he stood up and said he'll take the blame for losing the money for that, but they actually filed charges of him on $20, which today would be a Class C. The Houston Police Department hired him. At the Houston Police Department, he worked at West Side. Because of his character and the job that he was doing at West Side, investigating a lot of thefts in the West Side Division back in '84, he was assigned to CID, Criminal Intelligence Division, only being with the Houston Police Department for 2 years. That is very unlikely to be reassigned. Because of the job he did, he was recognized, and he was placed on the Shooting Review Board. No one at that rank of an officer has ever been placed on the Shooting Review Board. It had to be a lieutenant and above. Because of his character, they placed him there. Then he went on to work for ATF, a federal agency that also looked at his background, saw that it was back in 1977 of $20 and let him on. So I'm just asking the commission to consider his character, his work history, what he's done for Texas, being an outstanding officer, and I'm asking for the commissioners to consider that waiver so I can hire him as one of my investigators. I have full confidence in him, just as all these other agencies have had as well. So that's pretty much all I have to say, unless you have any questions. I'll have Gary to come up to speak.
Yes, Sheriff, if you'll hang on just one second, I appreciate you coming all this way to present before the commission. Do any commissioners have any questions for the sheriff? All right, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Gary, if you would come on up, please. Mr. Gary, if you would, state your name. You obviously represent yourself, and we'll give you some time to speak should you like so.
Yes, sir. My name is E.J. Gary, Everett J. Gary, and I am a retired senior special agent with the Bureau of ATF, formerly Houston Police also, and now currently employed by the United States Marshal Service, attempting to become employed under Sheriff Eric Fagan with the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office.
Anything that you want to talk to in regards to?
Yes, sir.
Or add anything the sheriff said?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to say, you know, back in 1977, was that 40-some years ago, I made a drastic mistake, an error, as an 18-year-old, and it's still haunting me till today, even though I've had a very long law enforcement career with Houston Police Department, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the United States Marshal Service. Didn't realize how important my commission was when Eric and I when Sheriff Fagan and I were sworn in on May 11th of 1984. I didn't realize how important the state commission was at the time. But, you know, as I got older and wanted to go back in local law enforcement, I realized how important it is. And I realized how important that hiccup, 42, 43 years ago has become in my life. So I'm just asking the commission to forgive me for that, for what happened when I was 18 years old. And I think I've proven that, the most I've had since 1977 was a traffic ticket in 1971. And I think it was like 1995, I was in San Antonio training and was stopped by an officer, but that ticket also was dismissed. So that's all I've had is a traffic ticket in 40-some years. And so I'm just asking the commission to, I really like to come back as a certified, commissioned peace officer in the state of Texas. I think this will finish up my career, and I'll be very proud to be back as a licensed, commissioned peace officer with the fourth largest state in the United States.
Thank you, sir. I believe we have some questions on the dais, Commissioner Burris.
Yes, thank you so much for submitting your packet to us. I know how long ago it was. I won't say the number of years either because it's my lifetime.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, you're making me seem old. Madam, thank you.
But again, thank you for the submission. I can't begin to imagine what it feels like to be in your shoes here today. Something that happened as a kid, prefrontal cortex thought, all those things that happen when we're kids, and now you're here today, so many years later, having to, and then on this particular meeting, right, where we've got like 750 people in the audience.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for demonstrating to us the importance, though, for you of getting back into this position of service to the community. You didn't push it to another commission date, so you didn't have to be here today. You could be at something with a few less people in the audience. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Sheriff, for your submissions and for speaking on behalf of Officer Marshal Gary, Agent Gary here, and that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and I will tell you that this is a repentance level for me, because for me to present to you in front of 750 people of my colleagues, that's an opportunity for me to finally get past this, hopefully. And because like I said, as a special agent, it was never a question. With the Marshal Service, it's not a question. And even with HPD, it wasn't a question. But going back now, seeing what that was back then, what the $20 offense was back then, and what it is now, it's giving me a chance to get past all that. And I will say, the most troubling part of this whole thing is that my mom and dad are both deceased. And they stood by me with this. My dad was a laborer. He was a blue-collar laborer with the City of Houston Sanitation Department. And my dad couldn't afford an attorney for me. He couldn't afford bail money, you know what I mean? Over a $20 offense. But some kind of way he did it. And I was never able to tell him I'm sorry. And my mom, And that's the most troubling part of this whole thing, that the people that I put in a really bad position back then when I was 18 years old, they're all gone now. And now I'm trying to address it, but I can't tell them how sorry I am for putting them through all this. So hopefully, me repenting in front of 750 of my colleagues, hopefully that will suffice. Hopefully that will suffice. My mom and dad forgiving me for that, and I just thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity, because I know my packet could have been denied, by staff. It's gone through several hands, and several people have looked at it, and I could have been denied before it got to you guys. So I thank staff for allowing me to get here today, getting it through you guys, and getting here today. And I promised Sheriff Fagan that I'll give him my best, like I have with the police department, with the Bureau of ATF, and with the Marshal Service. I've always put my best foot forward, and I'll do the same thing for him as well. So, by giving opportunity by you guys.
I really hope you're able to put this to bed. I can't speak again for your parents, but I think you absolutely demonstrated to them how sorry you were and how you were just going to do great things with your life. And I'm sure you demonstrated that to them every single day going forward. So I hope you can put this to bed today. I can't speak on behalf of the commission what's going to happen right now, but I have an idea.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gary. Any other questions from commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to grant the request for Class A waiver for Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Eric Fagan, on behalf of Everett J. Gary.
Second.
Have a motion to approve the Class A waiver for Mr. Gary and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, could I have one more comment, please?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
One more comment, just a few minutes. I just want to tell you guys, thank you so very much. This is my first TCOLE meeting. I was certified back in 1984, and this is my first time coming to one of these commissioners' meetings, and I am so proud, to be a part of you guys again. You guys do a great job, and I just want to tell you guys, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And also, just so you're clear, you can't leave the sheriff because it's only good for his agency.
So he pretty much owns me now, right?
I wouldn't go that far, but thank you.
Guys.
All right, the second one under agenda item number 8 for Taylor County Sheriff's Office. If Sheriff Ricky Bishop and Mr. Lawrence Dorsey would please start making their way forward. I will first turn it over to the Executive Director.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is an offense that occurred in 1988 for carrying of a prohibited weapon. Mr. Dorsey was arrested by TABC agents for carrying an illegal knife. This is sort of one of the after the fact, but not so much. Mr. Dorsey was hired by previous sheriffs, not by the current administration. This was found on a rat back. I'll leave it to them to talk about his career since then. The sheriff has come to ask for the waiver for the prohibitive offense of carrying a prohibited weapon, which was at that time a Class A misdemeanor and no longer is. Nonetheless, at the time of this arrest and conviction, it was a Class A misdemeanor.
I'm gonna turn it on. Thank you very much. Sheriff Ricky Bishop, if you would go ahead, sir, state your name, and the floor is yours for comments about the waiver, sir.
Thank you. Sheriff Ricky Bishop, Taylor County, and I am here with Mr. Dorsey to request for a waiver for this arrest that happened in 1988. He was first hired as a corrections officer in 2015, and this was found when Mr. Hobbs, Mike Hobbs, came and let us know that I had an unauthorized employee. So we began an investigation into how he got employed, and for whatever reason, the jail administrator at the time signed off on his employment, and it passed through, and he's been employed since 2015. That administrator does not recall, and no one has been able to tell us how this passed through our system for him to become employed. However, like I said, this arrest happened 36 years ago, and he was 20 years old at the time. Since then, since he's been an employee for us, I believe this is his first law enforcement job that he started in 2015, and he's done an exceptional job for us. I believe not only does he have letters of recommendation from family, friends, but he's also got some from current and former inmates of our facility, where he has been a sergeant for the last 6 years in an 826-bed facility. So he's been doing a heck of a job for us. Has been a great asset to the citizens of Taylor County and for those that have been incarcerated. And I deeply apologize for how this got found and how we got to where we are now, but I do humbly request that this waiver be approved and his license reinstated so I can put him back to work.
All right, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dorsey, if you
Yes,
would,
sir.
please state your name and any comments you would like to make to the commission.
Lawrence Dorsey. I just want to first say this is the first conference I've ever been to. It's very impressive, and I appreciate everything y'all do. I know in law enforcement we don't get that a lot. Everybody hates on us and what we do, and we get it in jail and everything else. I just want to say thank you, and it is appreciated. As for my situation, of course, I didn't know at the time when I was hired. I couldn't be hired with my A, or of course I wouldn't have tried, but I went through, everything went through good. The incident was 36 years ago. I was 20 years old. I had a knife that was illegal. At the time could have been considered as a switchblade because it was a flip knife. It wasn't a switchblade as today's society, but back then in 1988 in that time could have been considered that. Of course, I did not know that, or I would have never had it on me. My birthday was like 2 months before that. I was at a friend's house. We're all over there. I was going to show him my knife. My dad actually got it for me. Rest his soul, he's passed now. And I was just going to show him. It was in my jacket. I didn't know. I got arrested for it. I was embarrassed. I'm embarrassed now. I thought it was behind me. Came back up when this audit came, and here I am again, still trying to fight and get past this. Excuse me, just trying to get past it.
Yes, sir, thank you very much. And Sheriff, for clarification, you're asking for a jailer's waiver, jailer's license waiver?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for the sheriff or Mr. Dorsey? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Approval waiver for Mr. Dorsey.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the Class A waiver for a jailer's license and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
And Sheriff, thank you. I know it's a long way from Taylor County, but thank you very much for making the trip down here
Yes,
That
sir.
shows
Thank
the
you all
importance of that.
And all the help that the commission staff or the TCOLE did to help get us to this point.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on, we'll move now to agenda item number 6, discuss and take action on membership for Advisory Committee for Training Coordinator Standards. Director Gretchen Grigsby.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. As I mentioned in my report, one of the advisory committees that you all have approved for us to stand up is minimum standards for training coordinators. So right now, all that the TCOLE rules say is that you have to have an instructor license and be a full-time employee. But we have found that there have been instances where somebody who wouldn't be eligible to get a TCOLE license, or had, rather, to be more clear, a disqualifier for obtaining a TCOLE license, have been placed in the position of training coordinator. So that has been one of the things that has led us to look at this advisory committee and work with the stakeholders that would be involved in establishing what those minimum standards should be. So it's not so much in mirroring it to license standards, but it is also what training should they have, what other qualifications should they have obtained. And so while we are here at the TCOLE training conference with all of the training coordinators in one place, we really wanted to highlight this as one of the advisory committees that we are looking at, so that we can bring some recommended members to you at a later time and have that committee work on developing those minimum standards. So that is all that we have to report today. There's not any action that you have before you to take, but I really wanted to make sure that that message is out there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Director Grigsby or the Executive Director from the Commissioners? Any other comments? All right, hearing none, it's not an action item. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, discuss and take action on proposed internal audit plan presented by Weaver and Associates. Director Brian Roth.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. In order to obtain an informed external assessment of the agency, TCOLE did an extensive search of qualified internal audit companies in accordance with state procurement law. The result of this search was a contract with accounting and audit firm Weaver. Weaver is a well-respected firm in the industry that has been around since 1950. We expect this internal audit item to be recurring on the agenda from time to time. Here today from Weaver is Jeff Jones, and with your permission, Commissioners, I'd like to ask Mr. Jones to speak to discuss a proposed internal audit charter and internal audit plan for the agency.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead and state your name, and I believe we'll give you the floor.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Jeff Jones. I'm with Weaver and Tidwell. I am a senior manager with the firm. I'm here today on behalf of Dan Graves. He was conflicted. He'll be at the future meetings. And as Brian stated, there's a couple of items today for your consideration for review and approval. That's our internal audit charter as well as our fiscal year 2025 internal audit plan. I believe these documents have been provided in draft form, and we've met with several of you previously to discuss some of these items. Today I want to go over some of the key topics because it is a 5-page internal audit charter, so I'm going to touch on some of the high points, and if there's any questions, I'm definitely glad to take those. So an internal audit charter is an essential document for a well-oiled internal audit function, if you will. It really lays out the overview and scope of our practice, our purpose, and it also grants us the authority to essentially do our job. As an internal auditor, we approach our internal audits as independent, and we take a risk-based approach to provide objective assurance for the agency. We conform with the Institute of Internal Auditors, or IIA, Global Internal Audit Standards. The Texas Government Code, Chapter 2102, known as the Texas Internal Audit Act, is the mandate which has really brought us here today to be your internal auditor. There's some thresholds there, and once agencies break those thresholds, an internal audit function is required. At least annually, we will meet with the Commission and provide updates Any changes to the charter, any significant changes to our engagement teams, we will bring that forth for your consideration. Moving through some of this charter, so we do conform, as I said, with the global internal audit standards, principles and ethics of professionalism. At least annually, we'll do what we're doing today, which is to review our proposed plan for the next year. We also perform follow-up procedures on any open items, really until those items are closed out by management or remediation has occurred. If there's no questions over the charter, I'll move on. I'll just give you guys a minute to ask any questions you may have over the charter.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So on the authority, it says the commission authorizes the internal audit function to basically have full, free, and unrestricted access to all records, resources, properties, personnel carrying out this audit. Is that going to be even, does that audit also allow y'all access to some of the protected personnel files and records and information as well?
That's a very good question, and it was one that I was anticipating potentially having, so I thought through. And, really what this is saying is you are granting us the access that we need to perform our procedures. We can have redacted information. If there's information that management or the commission's not comfortable with us having, we can redact that just so long as there's enough information that we can perform our procedures and then come back to you with the results so that as management, they can go through that information and be able to identify where those exceptions lie.
Yeah, 'cause some of the access that this would, under this right here, will give you all access to, we have to do our due diligence to ensure that that information is strictly confidential, not leaked out, protected, and, it's very important that we keep that information protected.
Yes,
What
sir.
safeguards do y'all as a company have to make sure that doesn't happen?
That's a very good question. All of us have gone through rigorous background checks to become an internal auditor. We're credentialed. I have my CIA through the IIA, that's the Institute of Internal Auditors, and many of us are also CPAs, so we have credentialing bodies of our own who do background checks and such. On top of that, we deal with sensitive information from clients all the time. I'm not sure if that gives you the assurance you're looking for, but we're very careful with this type of information, and it's something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. As far as the cybersecurity goes, we do have safe and secure portals to transmit documents, and again, we'll take any procedures necessary, precautions with management to ensure that information that's that sensitive is closely guarded, and if we can, maybe we come on site and we review that information on site versus having that information sent to us digitally. That way we don't have any risk of having a leak like you said.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions on the audit charter? Director Roth, any other clarifying information on the charter from your perspective, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. Please move forward on the audit plan, please.
Thank you. We have a really exciting, I would say, internal audit plan for this year. Enforcement and credentialing and licensing. So two very, very critical processes for the agency. And the way that we're approaching them, I think, is a very good approach. We worked with Brian and management to develop this internal audit plan. And so it includes enforcement and credentialing, like I said. However, it's the design evaluation component of our internal audits. Typically, in a full cycle audit, we'll do the design evaluation, and then we'll follow up and do what we call a test of effectiveness. I don't want to bore you guys with all those details, but I'm glad to get into it if you'd like us to. Essentially, what this will do is allow us to get an understanding of the core business processes in place with enforcement and credentialing. And then in a following year, we can do transaction-level testing over individuals who've maybe gone through the enforcement process and the licensing process. We would do sample-based testing in a different year. This year is focused on understanding what the processes and internal controls are within those areas. Those are the two audits. And in addition to those, we will do a risk assessment typical project management activities, and then our quarterly or as-needed commission reporting meetings. That's the plan before you today.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Just Commissioner Berry? No, I'm sorry. West? The other Justin.
Either way. So your plan this year is just to learn who we are and what we do. What is the output that you're going to provide back to us at the end of the year?
That's a great question. Our design evaluation, to be honest, most of the time when we have findings, they are found in that design evaluation. It's when there's a gap in between a risk that we've identified and then the processes and controls. So I heard you guys have a lot of discussion today around a bunch of processes, and it sounded like y'all were having a little bit of a design evaluation discussion to me. It's where you identify gaps in the processes that may be risks, and those are the type of audits that's really in that design evaluation component. When we do that test of effectiveness, we're really validating whether or not those are occurring in practice. Does that help?
That does. And then we are very focused on cybersecurity. How much of the cybersecurity do you get into with the outside vendors that we use, or do you stay solely in-house and take our word for it?
That's a good question. We have a team of in-house cybersecurity experts. That's not my forte, but at Weaver we do have cybersecurity experts. They can do cybersecurity risk assessments, and in this year's plan, we are not reviewing cybersecurity. However, we could do one in a different year. That's always a hot topic, and typically one that we rotate so that we're not reviewing cyber every year. IT folks tend to have a lot on their plates, and having an extra internal audit is not what they want every year.
I believe he used the term exciting audit, which a lot of us don't say at the same time. I do know with our IT staff, the cyber requirements that the state requires and Tex Ramp certification and those things, staff is completely in compliance with a lot of that stuff. And so I don't know if y'all want to speak to that at all in regards to this, because if they do have records, to just Commissioner Berry's point, I think they have secure API to get that if they need it, and controls with that to handle.
We have third-party cybersecurity assessments done every 2 years.
So we should be good on that. And then I think the other part of this in my conversations, the working group conversations prior to this, the commissioners have, if we see things in the future that we want the auditors to go look at, there's a process or something that we want them to focus on future plans, we can always make that change as a group and say, hey, go look at this and give us a report back on that. So, commissioners, any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the internal audit plan and audit charter.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burris and a second by Commissioner Griffiths. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item number 9, discuss and take action on proposed amendment to TCOLE, to existing TCOLE Rule 211.16 related to the patrol vehicle requirement for law enforcement agency minimum standards. Deputy Chief Vineyard.
I don't have a lot to cover on this one. This came out of the agency standards, and so the intent of that group was to allow certain agencies that were already using, the original intent of the group was to require agencies to have agency-owned vehicles for particular purposes. In the discussion at a prior meeting, we wanted to make sure that those who are already using personal vehicles for agency purposes continued that ability. And so I think there was an amendment to address that. However, when they were used in particular situations, it still required that the agency insure the vehicle. And so this modification was intended to allow them to continue to operate a personal vehicle under their own insurance. Our conversations with Texas Municipal League and Texas Association of Counties I'm not by any means an expert in insurance, but when they explain the way those policies are constructed, they all include non-owner vehicle clauses, which would cover what I think that group was concerned about, that if there is a liability that exceeds the driver's personal insurance, that there would be additional coverage under the county policy or the city policy. And so I hope that this captures what you intended, but still lets us make sure that the insurance coverage is appropriate.
Counselor, comments?
The only I have, Commissioner Hester, is to kind of take a step back for a moment before we get into these 5 proposed amendments for the benefit of both staff, the commission, and those in attendance, that the 5 proposed amendments before the commission this afternoon are that just first readings of this rule, so we properly orient ourselves in the rulemaking process. This is the first step in that process. These amendments will go before the commission today for consideration and public comment. Assuming they are approved as written or as amended as we go through the day, they will go to the Texas Register for publishing and an additional period of public comment, meaning this is not a in the books rule yet until that public comment period, meaning you can email TCOLE, you can email your FSAs, you can email the Texas Register, whatever way you want to do so. You can submit that public comment. The commission at its next scheduled commission meeting will consider those public comments, and if you were familiar with the commission meeting from earlier in the year when we had the advisory committees and the work product which they put out, we had over close to 75 public comments on a variety of the model policies. And I say all that just so everyone knows where we are in the process, and today is not the final stop, or is it the final version even of these rules that you will hear being proposed, but this is just the first step in the process as they are proposals.
All right, any questions for TJ? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve these to post, agenda item 9 to post in the register.
I move that we accept the proposed amendment for 211-16 to be posted in the registry for public comment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to post this in the register. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say something real quick. The
No.
change that we're
Sorry, kidding.
The change that we're discussing today, it applies to, as Director Vineyard said, agencies who are already in operation. So those smaller counties, jurisdictions that have sheriff's offices or constable's offices that have the budget to supplement mileage or some sort of payment to the employee for using their vehicle. But the way the rule was written, it would nullify that and require those jurisdictions now to have a onerous budget outlay to purchase vehicles and insure them. So thank you to staff for working so diligently on this. It was a big question mark the last time we discussed it, how we would get to that end. And I really appreciate the work you've done. Allows the state to have the supplemental enforcement that these agencies provide without having that burden of purchasing those vehicles where they don't have the budget for it. So thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 10, discuss and take action on proposed amendments to existing TCOLE Rule 211.27, 28, and 29 relating to the responsibility to report the arrest, charge, and disposition of criminal offenses for licensees. Counselor, do you want to start with this, or are we going straight to?
We go straight.
Okay. General Counsel Aaron Heath.
Strike that. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I could do the background on this, Commissioner Hester. Agenda item number 10, Commissioners, proposed amendments to TCOLE Rules 211.27, 28, and 29. As Commissioner Hester laid out, historically, these 3 rules provided the reporting of criminal arrest dispositions to TCOLE, and the purpose of their 3 different sources of that information was to ensure that TCOLE had received them from a single source, at least one of the 3 sources of information. What these proposed amendments do under 211.27, which lays out the responsibilities of individuals, it removes that responsibility for the individual to report the disposition to TCOLE. 21128, the responsibility of a law enforcement agency. You'll see the same, that it will strike that when an agency receives information that is an arrested or charged a licensee, it has the duty to inform TCOLE and all copies, this is the amended language, copies of all related offense reports and charging documents. And in 21129, which goes to the responsibilities of agency chief administrators, if you look down to paragraph N, it removes the requirement that the agency shall notify the commission electronically within 30 days when it receives information that the person was arrested or the disposition of the offense. These three proposals for your consideration, absent any comments by staff.
I don't know if the staff has any comment, but I'll start. So I asked the staff to take a look at this, and I'll give you guys the history on this. So prior to last session, when TCOLE got wrapped back authority, the rule said 3 people have to notify TCOLE on an arrest: the licensee, the agency that arrested them, and the appointing agency. Now with the incorporation of wrap back into it, TCOLE is getting those notices when that happens. And so the purpose of the rule originally does not fit the practice of it is today, since TCOLE got wrap back authority. And so we're really clarifying this up, because what we're doing, if you notice in our agenda item, we're issuing a lot of reprimands to individuals that don't report their arrest. And I would venture to say a lot of the people in here, well, you guys are probably the exception, because most of you are training coordinators, know you have to report your arrest. But most don't know that if you get arrested, you got to fill out your own E1 and turn it in yourself. And failure to do so results in a reprimand. The appointing agency currently has to do it, and also the arresting agency if they know it. And so this is an attempt to clarify that of actually who has to do it, what requirements there are with it. The biggest change for that is giving some teeth behind when staff calls an arresting agency and says, please send us a copy of all reports and supporting documentation, that agency is required to send that to staff so that they can evaluate that, whether or not it needs to be an immediate suspension on that license. And so, again, as what Commissioner West says, I appreciate the discussion with staff as we work through this. This is to post on the register for public comment, and then I'm sure it might or might not get massaged through the final steps of the process come our next meeting. Any questions or any comments from staff? Be good. TJ?
I think to go along with what you said, I just want to remind all of you that in page 43 of your packet is the chart on how arrests were received. That's tracking for roughly 9 months of this year. Remember, we had a 7 to 10% reporting by licensees. As we've been issuing reprimands, that's gone up, but it's still only up to about 20%. The arresting agencies and the appointing agencies report generally in the 30-40% range, but you have to remember not all licensees are appointed, so those wouldn't be, and not all arresting agencies are aware the person they're arresting is a licensee. The most important line is the one at the top, which is our wrap back results. And those are steady in the 92 to 94% range right now of cases that we're finding out through wrap back. That's consistent with our subscription numbers, which I think we can still improve. So we are getting far more reports. Prior to wrap back, we would have been relying on those 30 to 40% numbers. So we're doing far better now based on wrap back.
Any other questions? Yes.
It's like, I understand the importance of streamlining the process and, not having certain individuals kind of take the brunt of the disciplinary action where it isn't due. Just kind of the way it stands right now, it reads to me like, I don't know. I haven't digested it enough, and maybe once it goes out for public comment and we think and talk about it as an agency and a commission, it'll become a little clearer. But I just, my feeling on it is like we're we're going to have some group that is going to still slip through the cracks when you just funnel everything through one point of entry.
So there are a couple things that I discussed that I would like to be better prepared to talk about in March. The first one is my concern, the only place that I can see now that we would be creating an exposed risk that we didn't have before is in unappointed licensees seeking a new appointment, if there's a possibility that we miss them. I think the relatively simple solution would be to go with what was recommended by the advisory committees and what was adopted in the model policies, is that there is no longer any new appointment requires that you go through the fast fingerprint system, and even if it's less than 180 days that you get fingerprinted. That reduces the risk in that area. The two other things that I'd like to look at and bring back at the next meeting are looking at if we have any cases where an arrest was reported only by the licensee, that we didn't get through any other mechanisms. And I have a lot of data over 9 months to look at. I would be surprised if there are any, but I want to see if there are any. And then I want to look at all the cases where we didn't receive a rat back hit and determine where that breakdown was. If it's in that small group that we still haven't subscribed to, if it was in a miscommunication with DPS, where those are so that we could evaluate what that is. I still think we're going to be in the less than 5% range. And I'm not sure that any of those cases were being captured by a report by a licensee to begin with. But I think I can give you a clear picture so that you'll understand if we're taking on any unnecessary risk.
As usual, TJ, you're on it. So that's fantastic. I'll just look forward to hearing more about what you find with those numbers, because it's really hard to tell except like you kind of have a feeling, but the numbers will bear out, what we're actually facing and our risks.
And I think the conversation we have with Commissioner Hester is the rule was a tool. If we've developed a better tool, a more effective tool, then I don't think there's any risk in removing the rule.
Great.
Data-driven decisions.
All right. Any other questions or further discussion? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the proposed amendment as written.
I second it.
We have a motion to accept the proposed amendments for discussion to the Texas Register, and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 11, discuss and take action on proposed amendments to existing TCOLE Rule 211.29 and 215.9 related to reporting failures of medical and psychological examinations. General Counsel.
Commissioners, for your consideration and input from staff, agenda item number 11, proposed amendment to TCOLE Rule 211.29 and 215, which relates to the responsibilities of agency chief administrators and training training coordinators with regard to L2s, L3s, fit for duty exams, and failed drug screens. We'll start with 211.29, which relates to the responsibilities of agency chief administrators. If you'll look at Section H, paragraph H, an agency chief administrator shall notify the commission of any failed L2 or L3 exam within 30 days on a form prescribed by the commission. That's any failed medical or psychological exam within 30 days. The chief administrator shall notify the commission upon a final determination of a failed fit-for-duty exam or drug screen. That's a final determination, a final failure for the fit-for-duty or drug screen within 30 days on a form prescribed by the commission. Now, if you look at proposed Rule 215.9 related to training coordinators, it relates to the notify the commission of any failed L2 or L3 within 30 days of the form. There is, you'll see under training coordinators, there is no fit for duty or drug screen requirement in that proposed rule. Absent any further commentary or input from staff for your consideration, proposed amendments to Rules 211.29 and 215.9.
Commissioners, any questions?
Just to comment.
Commissioner Burse?
This came out of committee, I presume? Yes? Yes.
Or is this from staff?
No, this was out of the committee. Is that correct? John?
That's correct, Commissioner Burns.
Yep.
There is requirements in for the L2, L3 failures within the model policies.
So the only reason I ask is it is really well written. And I just wanted to point out, it's really well done. It's very clear. It uses plain English. That's what I think everyone wants to see.
Well, staff will take credit for writing as the substance came for the model policies.
I do want to clarify one thing just for this group. You said drug screens weren't included in 6, but they would be if they were a part of the L2. In the other rule, we're referring to existing employees who failed a drug screen. Again, seeking treatment, restore that ability. That doesn't have to be reported. It's only a final failure.
So is that, I understand in practice what we're talking about, but when I read the language, any failed medical, there's not a whole lot of ambiguity there when it says any failed medical. The in practice of what you're talking about and the words, or maybe I'm just misreading. Go ahead.
This is for the training coordinators for the academies. They have to report any failure. Those would be applicants. The fit for duty and the drug screen was referring to a final failure. And I just wanted to make sure that the academy coordinators knew if someone failed a drug screen on the L2, they would have to report that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion to approve agenda item number 11 for posting to the Texas Register?
Yep, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burris and a second by Commissioner Berry to post this in the Texas Register. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 12, discuss and take action on proposed amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 219.2 relating to the reciprocity for federal officers. Director, or counsel, who wants it? Go ahead.
I'll turn it over to Director Grissom, who will give us the background on this one, Commissioner Hester.
Commissioners, we see a lot of people wanting to come to Texas. Often they have a background in federal service, but they want to become Texas peace officers. Previously, this rule has restricted our, if you will, a shortcut program for them to get a license in Texas, and it's restricted it to a certain section of the Code of Criminal Procedure. And what we find is there's a lot of, in our minds, very eligible people that because their agency doesn't normally operate in Texas, Texas didn't put them in the Code of Criminal Procedure. So we slaved our rules to a statute that doesn't really define what we need. The language in the amendment does two things. It updates the language to the new numbering convention for the Code of Criminal Procedure as it's getting renumbered. But it gives the executive director the ability to investigate the training, the work that people do with other federal agencies, and if it is similar to, or in many cases identical to, those agencies listed in the Code of Criminal Procedure, we would give them the same full faith and credit for that service. A real simple example is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Does not do a lot in Texas. They do some, but they go through a full training academy at FLETC. They have the same training requirements. They do patrol work just like uniformed patrol officers all over Texas, but they're not eligible today to come through our process. Though this rule would expand, one of the things the executive directors impressed upon us is to expand our help in recruiting qualified applicants to come and work in Texas. So this would lead us down that as an expansion and make this available to more people who have federal service.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I think it's great we're addressing this finally. So we've talked about it at least my last 10 years. So yay, let's move forward with a rule to get more people involved. I only have one question. We have maybe it's just me, I'm not reading this correctly, but on C1 of the rule, it talks about post-approved, and it doesn't seem to me that means after approved. Is that defined?
Yeah, I think that's referring to Commissioner Burris, police officer standards and training, like a equivalent of TCOLE in another state. Is that versus post,
Yeah.
after?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it obviously doesn't mean post-after, but I just wanted to make sure that we be sure to put that in the definitions in the rules.
Yes, our equivalent in most states is considered peace officer standards and training. So, very common acronym, but we can spell that out.
We
can take a look.
We need to spell it out because, you know what, there's going to be another lawyer out there, something comes and this is at issue, and now it's not defined in our own rules. So wherever that is that we need to include it, let's do that. I personally usually like to see it like twice in the definitions and then sometimes just right here, right in the rule itself.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to post agenda item number 12 for the posting in the Texas Register.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for agenda item number 12 to be posted in the Texas Register. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving to agenda item number 13, discuss and take action on proposed new TCOLE Rule 211.41 related to protest procedures for agency procurement actions. General Counsel.
Thank you, Commissioner Hester. This procurement protest procedure rule is presented to drive some engagement and excitement in the balconies up there to keep them with us as we move forward. This is a great one. As the agency has grown, particularly in response to last session in the Sunset Bill, the agency will be have more opportunities for procurement, larger contracts, larger procurement agreements. As a result, in compliance with state law, we have used and borrowed heavily, if not almost exclusively, from the controller's procurement protest records and appeals processes, and we've presented that to you so we have a formal protest process in our rules as required by state law. Commissioner Harvey has submitted some proposed amendment, and I will read those as we go along. We don't have those in the extrinsic aids that you have in both the screen in front of us and behind. I will first direct your attention to subsection A2, that's subsection A2, which reads now, a formal protest must be sworn to and contain the following information or documentation. The proposed addition to this by Commissioner Harvey is the language, be sworn to, insert by affidavit before a notary public. I'm going to say again, by affidavit before a notary public after the word to under subsection A2. And I'll check with Commissioner Harvey to see if that's along the lines with what he was wanting, what we discussed and what he's looking for there.
That's correct.
Awesome, thank you. We'll direct your attention to subsection C now, to 1141, subsection C. Going down, let's go to the next to last sentence that starts, the chief financial officer may solicit written responses to the protest from other interested parties. Staff, based on Commissioner Harvey's recommendations, agrees with the recommendation to insert the language, this does not prohibit a party from submitting a written response without solicitation. I say again, this does not prohibit a party from submitting a written response without solicitation, inserted prior to the words, if the protest, the last sentence in subsection C. Again, I'll check with Commissioner Harvey to ensure that comports with the direction that he suggested.
That's correct.
The proposed amendment number 13, Commissioners, with those additions to subsection A2 and subsection C for your consideration, absent any other additional input from staff.
Commissioners, any questions? Just as a point of clarification, in the state procurement rules, I'm not sure that it's a requirement to be notarized in order to submit a protest. Sorry, I keep hitting that. So I'm good with moving forward with it, but we might need to take a look at it. But as a general practice, it makes good sense, but I don't know that that's a requirement under the state protest and procurement requirements. At least the ones that I deal with have never had to been.
Sure. And the suggestion was just because sworn to is a little vague on what do you have to swear to, what kind of instrument do you swear to, and so I just figured notary public is like the usual way, by affidavit you swear to something.
The good thing about it is you keep false protests from coming in because you actually have to stamp it and put your name on it. So.
But if that's inconsistent with other state regulations or something, I guess legal can let us know.
Yep.
We'll take a look at it.
Absolutely. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve agenda item number 13 for posting into the Texas Register with the changes to subsection A2 and C as outlined by General Counsel? I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds to approve this. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 14, discuss and take action on proceedings for revocation, suspension, and other disciplinary actions for default suspension orders. Assistant General Counsel Mark Duncan.
Thank you, Commissioners. There are 6 default suspension orders. These are suspensions the agency sought for misdemeanors above a Class C. We mailed the petitions to the appropriate address, and they were not responded to. The first one is Daniel Alberto with the Trinity County Sheriff's Office. He was convicted or placed on community supervision for a Class B DWI, and we are now seeking a 10-year suspension. Do you wish to vote on them as a whole?
Put them as a block.
Yes, put them as a block, please.
Second one is Justin Alexander with the Converse Police Department. He was convicted or placed on community supervision for a Class B DWI as well. We are seeking a 10-year suspension of his license. Henriette Davis with the Goliad County Sheriff's Office was convicted or placed on community supervision for DWI with a BAC above .15, a Class A misdemeanor. We're seeking a 10-year suspension. Andrew McVicker with the Grovetown Police Department was convicted or placed on community supervision for DWI, a Class B misdemeanor, again seeking a 10-year suspension. Iman Namatalahi with the Wichita Falls Police Department was convicted or placed on community supervision for DWI Class A, BAC over .15. Again, 10-year suspension. And Paige Saylor with Navasota Police Department was convicted or placed on community supervision for 2 counts of theft, movable property less than $2,500, the close equivalent to a Class A misdemeanor in Texas. Also, we are seeking a 10-year suspension.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the default suspension orders?
Make a motion that we approve the default suspension orders for Daniel Alberto, Justin Alexander, Nurette Davis, Andrew McVicker, Iman Niatole, and Paige Saylor.
Second.
Is that Commissioner Sines? Did you second that? No? Oh, Connor did? Oh, I'm sorry. It sounded down there. I was like, man, it's first one. All right, I have a motion to approve the default suspension orders by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Default revocation orders, Assistant General Counsel Daniel Walker.
Thank you, Commissioners. Moving to the default revocation orders, the first we have is for Justin Ham of the Ector County Sheriff's Office. He was convicted or placed in community supervision for assault by physical contact, a Class C misdemeanor involving family violence. The executive director determined that he committed this offense and filed a license action seeking revocation, and he did not answer the petition. The executive director recommends the revocation of respondent's license. Second, we have Nicholas Staggs of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office, who was also convicted or placed in community supervision for an assault causing bodily injury, a Class A misdemeanor. the executive director determined the respondent committed an offense directly related to the duties or responsibilities of the office held and filed a license action seeking revocation. This respondent also failed to answer the petition, and the executive director recommends the revocation of the respondent's license.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion we accept the default revocation orders for Justin Ham and Nicholas Staggs.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Berry, a second by Commissioner Harvey to approve the default revocation orders. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agreed suspension waiver, Assistant General Counsel Daniel Walker.
For the agreed suspension waiver, we have Diana Robledo of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. This agreed waiver, there was a respondent was sent a waiver attached to the action. They agreed to the recommended disciplinary action contingent upon the commission issuing a corresponding agreed order. So Diana Robledo was convicted or placed in community supervision for driving while intoxicated, a Class B misdemeanor. The executive director was determined that the respondent committed an offense above a Class C and filed a license action seeking a 10-year suspension. The respondent signed the suspension waiver conditionally accepting the 10-year suspension, so the executive director recommends acceptance of the respondent's agreed 10-year suspension.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion we accept the agreed suspension waiver for Diana Robledo.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey to approve the agreed suspension waiver. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agreed orders of suspension, Assistant General Counsel Aaron Heath.
Hi, good afternoon. Agreed orders are cases where a petition was sent to the respondent and the respondent answered the petition by requesting a hearing at the State Office of Administrative Hearings. Prior to that hearing, a modified term of suspension was negotiated, and the modified terms were formally offered to the respondents in an agreed order. The respondent signed an agreed waiver conditionally accepting the modified terms, contingent on the commission issuing a corresponding agreed order. First, we have Jose Doria, Jr. Respondent was the chief of the Freer Police Department. Respondent made, submitted, caused to be submitted, or filed a false or untruthful telecommunicator application to TCOLE indicating an individual met the minimum standards for licensing or appointment. However, that individual had been convicted or placed on community supervision for a Class A misdemeanor prior to licensure. After negotiating a modified term of suspension, we offered and the respondent conditionally accepted a 6-month suspension. We recommend acceptance of the agreed order suspending respondent's license for 6 months.
Okay, Commissioners, we'll take these separately. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the agreed order of suspension for Jose Doria.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Berry, a second by Commissioner Harvey to approve the agreed order of suspension. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. General Counsel Heath.
Next, we have Edric Flores. On or about January 11th, 2012, respondent was convicted or placed on community supervision for driving while intoxicated, closely equivalent to a Class B misdemeanor in Texas. This happened in federal court. Respondent's peace officer license became inactive on September 1st, 2013. Respondent attempted to reactivate his peace officer license, and we negotiated a modified term of suspension for respondent to reactivate. We recommend acceptance of the agreed order suspending respondent's license for 10 years, backdated to begin January 11th, 2012, for your consideration.
Any motion?
Make a motion that we accept the agreed order suspension for Edric Flores.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey to approve the agreed order of suspension for Edric Flores. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Mr. Heath.
Next, we have Frederick Frazier. Respondent was convicted or placed on community supervision for 2 criminal offenses of attempted impersonating a public servant, Class A misdemeanors. After receiving extensive mitigating evidence during an informal conference, We offered and respondent conditionally accepted a modified term of suspension. We recommend acceptance of the agreed order suspending respondent's license for 1 year, followed by a probated suspension of 9 years, backdated to begin on December 9th, 2023.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the agreed order suspension for Frederick Frazier.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey to accept the agreed order suspension for Frederick Frazier. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next is Ernesto Garza. Respondent was convicted or placed on community supervision for obstructing highway intoxication, a Class B misdemeanor. After receiving mitigating evidence during an informal conference, we offered and respondent conditionally accepted a modified term of suspension. We recommend acceptance of the agreed order suspending respondent's license for 5 years, followed by a probated suspension of 5 years.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the agreed order suspension for Ernesto Garza.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey to accept the agreed order suspension for Ernesto Garza. Any further comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to agreed waivers for administrative penalties, Assistant General Counsel Jeannie Hilbert.
Good evening, Commissioners. For agreed waivers for administrative penalties, these are cases where an administrative penalty was assessed in a notice sent to the agency with a waiver attached, and the chief administrator or their designee ultimately signed the waiver. This means that the agency agreed to the executive director's recommended administrative penalty contingent upon the commission issuing a corresponding agreed order. So first we have Hudspeth County Sheriff's Office. The agency appointed an ineligible individual as a temporary telecommunicator. The individual had been convicted or placed on community supervision for a Class B misdemeanor within the last 10 years prior to licensure. Additionally, it was determined that an improper background investigation was conducted prior to appointment. We sought to assess an administrative penalty in the amount of $1,000. Respondent signed the administrative penalties waiver, agreeing to pay the assessed amount. We recommend the acceptance of the agreed administrative penalty of $1,000. Next, we have Mart Police Department. The agency failed to submit their annual racial profiling report to its governing body as required by law. We sought to assess an administrative penalty in the amount of $200. Respondent signed the administrative penalties waiver, agreeing to pay the assessed amount. We recommend the acceptance of the agreed administrative penalty of $200 for your consideration.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the agreed waivers for administrative penalties for Hudspeth County Sheriff's Office and Mart Police Department.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Harvey to accept the agreed waiver for administrative penalties for Hudspeth County and Mart Police Department. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Ms. Hilbig.
Okay, so for your information only, no action is required on your part for this section. First, we have 2 statutory suspensions. These occur when a licensee has received a deferred adjudication for a felony. There's 1 statutory revocation. These occur when a licensee has received a conviction of a felony. There are 19 permanent surrenders, 8 reprimands for administrative violations, 108 reprimands for failure to report an arrest. These are for licensees who failed to report their arrest on an E1, which we briefly discussed earlier in one of the rule changes. That is all for the information-only section. Again, no action is required on your part for these disciplinary cases, as they have already taken effect under statute or by operation of law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have a pending item. I'm going to move back to the agenda on item number 4, which was the approval of the minutes of the August 7th Commissioner Workshop and the August 8th Commission meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to table the item until we can make those corrections.
I second.
I I have a motion by Commissioner Burris and a second by Commissioner Berry to table agenda item number 4 which was the approval of the minutes of the August 7th workshop and the August 8th, 24 commission meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioners. We will not be going into executive session for number 16, which means we are not going to be coming out of executive session and take any action on that. Before I do anything else, I wanted to remind everybody that the social hour starts from 5 to 7 p.m. with food and beverages provided where the vendors are. So please make sure you come by and visit with our exhibitors at the conference center. I am assuming we're going to put something up on the screen here, but let me wait until we take the final. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.